Ooh, here we are. Finally. Okay.
Started, so I will see you. Yep. All right.
We are definitely seeing each other.
I will.
I
I will send
view
you. I'll send you a link.
a link.
I was in a voice chat with somebody,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got my podcast. I gotta go." And they were like, "Oh, when is that?" I'm thinking it might be now. It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll
it's
send
like
them a
right now.
link." Yeah, right now,
Right here, right now.
right here, right now, right here, right. It's the most horrible of things. I have had sleep.
Oh, wow. I did too.
Oh no. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man.
do we have a link out there in the ether on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Twitch space?
It's already out there on
All
Twitter,
right.
speakyourmindhere.com, minds.com, Cloud Hub. Um, Finally remembered to throw it into the tribe chat today.
Oh,
I don't know if I threw it into the Gilded or not.
okay. So if I can't find it anywhere else, I know where to look.
Yeah, we definitely had sleep. And today, oh boy,
Well,
today is going to be really interesting. So,
oh yeah. Let's see. Today is Prison Day,
yep, that's it.
and it's of course the last week of Chalt month, which we didn't realize it was going to be a month, but here it is.
Well,
Because
actually, I wanted to move because I really want to keep Chalt about Chalt. I
right,
wanted to move that.
but we do need to talk about Patty though.
We
We
do,
said we
yeah.
would.
That'll be on the next podcast. Patty, I'm so sorry,
Ah,
dude. Like
okay.
we were supposed to bring up your game last podcast, and that discussion went way off the rails, but it was a lot of
Woo.
fun. I mean, it shows you just how much fun a Chalt game can be. So,
Okay. So we're gonna get a Chalt epilogue at some point.
a Chalt epilogue would be, I don't know, that would be like an afterthought. I really don't think Patty's game is going to be an afterthought. It's like I looked it over, and it's really cool.
Mm.
Um,
Uh,
and of course, I wanted to have a look at Lord Mateus's Great Sunken Library
mm.
supplement that he wrote for Chalt, which is super interesting because that one, when you get to the Great Sunken Library, you can actually go in. Getting out could be the problem
Right.
because you delve too deeply, and man, it's going to be a task getting out. So you really have to remember the way you came. It's kind of cool that way. But
Well,
anyway, yeah, like today, and I want to start this out by saying, okay, we are going to cover very sensitive material. This is
oh
not for
boy.
kids. Get the kids out of the room. Not like you're letting your kids watch our shit, but I gotta say that anyway.
Oh,
But no, there's going to be a lot of sensitive material discussed here. Um, could get kind of graphic. So if we get taken off YouTube, if this video gets taken off YouTube for any reason,
for talking about things that actually happened and you have first person experience with that kind of thing.
yep, we will also be on Cloud Hub, Rumble, and Odyssey. You can check us out there. I don't know how long we're going to last on Cloud Hub with the sensitive material we're going to talk about, but Rumble and Odyssey are places we won't be getting censored, so you can check us out there as well.
um.
Also, um, like you can ask me anything you want, and I'll rephrase this again because we're probably going to have more people coming in. You can ask me anything you want. I may or may not be able to answer your question. If I'm not able to answer your question, I'll let you know. If I'm able to answer it to a limited degree, I'll let you know. And if I'm just able to answer it, I'm just going to answer it. So there you go. We got all that out of the way. We're good.
Well, before we get into the main topic, I do have a side thing just because it oddly enough information came my way. I have information sources. It's weird. Have you been following the thing with the wizards of the Sandy region? Yeah, I know. I know. So, if people are not familiar, a certain organization of occultists sent the Pinkertons after a dude for getting his hands on some some material it wasn't meant his to have. It was an accident, right? Clearly, that means you send the boys. The thing is, and this is why I bring it up. I actually found out, Raven, this is not the first time they've done it. An effort has been done to scrub it. Yeah, well, I didn't know because I was like, wait a minute, this happened in like 2014 and nobody talked about it, right? Like it went right under the radar, and I'm like, whoa, that's not good. In particular, because as you may or may not know, and you might, it's a good lead-in for what we're going to be talking about. The Pinkertons, historical figures, if anyone's familiar, sure, they are one of America's first detective agencies, but they were also, and primarily got their start as, union breakers, getting paid by the man to take away your rights to labor and safe conditions. And they made most of their money breaking unions for the railroads, including a certain little sub war you might have heard of in the West, where they were called regulators, because it's really nice to call people, thugs and bullies as long as we call them by a fancy name. And what were they doing? Oh, that's right, getting people to sell their land to the railroad on pain of pain. So these are the people that WotC hires to protect their IP when they fuck up. I find that very interesting.
Speaking of which, I actually watched the Clownfish TV video that they did. And apparently, according to old school MTG and his wife, they kind of forced their way into the door to keep them from closing the door when they were told to wait outside. I actually have a measure against that. Let me show it to you. Hang on.
Oh boy. You know this is good because Raven is sitting here eating chips. It's like
meet Brooke.
Mm.
And she is awesome.
Is she a steel friend or is she a classic wood friend?
Oh no. She is unbreakable. She is an unbreakable plastic friend. Very dense polymer. This would have been, unless they're wearing steel toes, this would have been visited upon their fucking feet.
Oh yeah.
Whatever. Let me just send a message here today. You force your foot into my door when I tell you to wait outside, I'm breaking it. You draw down, I crush your fucking skull. It's that simple. I may be about empowering people. I may be about like trying to get us more together. But if you actively do some shit like that, there's a reason this is kept next to the door. It doesn't matter which door you try to come in. Doesn't matter which window you try to come in. You're getting your skull split. That's it. And after that's done, I'm piling them up on the doorstep of whoever sent them.
Look, I have said before that gamers, TM, do not have the unity of metalheads. There's some crossover. Some of us are metalheads, but by and large, gamers don't care as long as you leave them alone and let them play their games. We'll hide in our corner, we'll close the door to the rest of the world, and pretend it doesn't exist no matter what they do. Right? But also, worth mentioning, vigorous individualists. If you try to take away our games, if you try to put your foot in our door, and you will not let us close out the world, there is a violent Wolverine in there. Because that is the being that has been holding back, potentially decades of agitation and all the minor injustices you gotta live with, that just wants to be left the fuck alone. Why can't we just be left alone?
Well, I like this one. I have a hammer and a bat twice the size of twice that size by my door. But in Canada, I'd go to jail and maybe in prison if I defended my home like that. Well, you know what? I might go to jail. I very well might. But someone's going to the fucking hospital or someone's going to the fucking morgue.
And hey, you've been to prison. You know all about prison. You're going to tell us about prison today.
Yeah, I know all about that. They don't know anything about the grave.
Also,
keep that in mind. Just
also
fuck around, find out. That's all I gotta say.
But of course, greetings Waylon, greetings Fox, and greeting Untermensch John from Discord.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Oh, we actually have a commandment, Wolfgar. I dropped the link into the Red Room Discord because Waylon wanted to come in, and Sylvia has commanded. She's going down to the supermarket, but when she comes back, she'll join. She wants to hear some juicy stories.
Oh,
she wants juicy stories.
She wants juicy stories.
The juicy stories.
Who've done hard time to know that I never ever want. Hey, neither do I.
Yeah,
neither do I. But I'm gonna tell you this much right now. When it comes to the choice of, let me just put it this way: everything outside of these windows, walls, and doors, that's theirs. We can live in peace that way. Anything inside is mine. And if you come in unwelcome, don't matter to me.
Well, not really a segue, but it's a segue. I have always said that, like, I'm not in favor of private schools. I think private schools breed elitism and a bunch of pretension, and they create division between people because, I went to private school and you're a commoner. But I also have always been very vociferously against how the public school system operates. Because my period of time from middle school to the end of high school, it was kid prison. It was like kid prison, man. Don't fuck around in the yard, you go and get stabbed. And it's entirely because, like, I was a kid who loved school in elementary school back in the day. 7-year-old little Joe in kindergarten. Yeah, I loved school. Okay? They beat my love of learning out of me. Okay? Not literally beat, but like psychologically beat it out of me. I had to relearn to love learning. And that's bad. That is not an ideal environment. And you're going to be talking about real prison, which I can only assume is like 1,000,000 times worse.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. And I'll tell you why. First thing first, let me answer this. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. This whole state is duty to retreat. But here's the thing. I'm not asking the state's permission for shit. They have overstepped their boundaries so many times that I just don't give a fuck. New Jersey, this awaits home invaders. Just saying.
I mean,
it will be, if you have not seen The Walking Dead, specifically the part where Negan introduces himself, it will be like that.
I mean, even so, you have every legal advantage if that's the logic. So, lawyer watching this, rub your hands together and giggle. Let me get this straight. You have a duty to retreat?
That's exactly what the state says.
They broke into your house. Mm-hmm. How much farther are you supposed to retreat?
Well, okay, understand the layout of my joint.
Right.
There's nowhere to.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. At what point do you transition from
exactly
flight to cornered animal?
At the point that it comes to defending me and mine,
you're okay. Nope. You're only allowed to take out the baseball bat once he has his dick in position to rape you. There we go.
If that's the case, and I'm not saying this is the only one I have.
There we go. Woo!
And that's a Swiss Army knife, y'all.
I mean,
would I use it for combat purposes? No. But if it's all I got, yeah.
just as a, let me see, do I have this in here still? Just wait for a while. Oh, I don't have it over here anymore. Damn. I was gonna reach into my desk and pull out the Bali ritual dagger or the Kali ritual dagger I've got.
Shit.
Yeah, my parents got it as a set piece, but it's functional. this
All right.
this giant wedge of triangular metal for cracking open rib cages to pull out hearts.
By the way, when I say I don't ask the state for shit, fucking flavored vapes. They were banned here in the state. How the fuck did I get them? I'm not telling you.
Internet.
No, because no one will ship here. Let's just say, suffice to say, I got it, and fuck you, Murphy.
No, it's not incriminating to show that you have weapons. We're just not going to talk about any plans we have for them, because if we talk about things too far in the future, people start using terms like premeditated.
Hold on. So, am I in a stand your ground municipality? No, I'm not, but I don't give a shit. And like you, I do love that aspect of some states. Primarily, the state I went back to not too long ago, that is a stand your ground state. It's also an open carry state, which meant I openly carried one of these around my neck. And this was just a cutting tool because I couldn't take any of my Swiss Army knives aboard the plane, and didn't really think, hey, let's order one ahead. But I was only going to be there for a fucking week. So let's keep that in mind. Here's one. I'm thinking about working security in the DJI. That's the prison system here in the Netherlands. As soon as I have my diploma, would you recommend? If so, any tips? I don't know how the Netherlands really works. I do know here there is licensure out the ass in this state. Like, you have to be licensed, and on top, and I kind of get it, because on top of that, corrections officers here have police powers. So they go through the police academy. They get the same training as a street cop, as a state trooper, I suppose. So as I understand it, as it was told to me, so on and so forth. Like, even just to work security in a hospital, you have to have your license and this and that and the third. It's a fucking rigmarole. So I never really went in that direction. I would say do your research. Really do your research. I'm thinking if they have staff that cooks for them, look at what your tool set currently is. If they have a staff that cooks for them regularly, then I would say a transition into that might be more stable, and that would be something you could do. If the inmates kind of cook for themselves, then obviously that's going to be out of your wheelhouse. But I would say do your research.
In the extremely broad, because I'm not supremely knowledgeable either. My experiences in that area of Europe, there's a greater emphasis on not just reform, but on like helping you to overcome the things that set you up to become a criminal in the first place. Psychological, social help, outreach, that sort of thing, education. We're a lot more punishment in our crime and punishment around here. So differences of experience, apply.
Well, we also have a difference in this country where the way it was set up, I'm not saying it's the way it is now, but the way it was set up, our Constitution is amended to restrict government, or is supposed to restrict government and protect rights with which we were born. To violate someone else's rights needs an answer. Right. And this could come, again, we've talked about honor culture in the tribe chat, where honor culture comes from, you have agriculture, which if something happens to your crops, there's a window where you can regrow some of them and you'd be okay. But if something happens to a head of cattle, that could be catastrophic, financially speaking, for you and your family. And so if I were to injure or kill one of your heads of cattle or steal one, that needs an answer. And much of America was honor culture for a very long time, especially in the Old West with cattle and horses, beasts of burden, that sort of thing. We had to answer that. So that's why cattle rustling, where if you stole even one cow, one bull, or whatever, that was considered a hanging offense back in those days. And it also, yeah, there was. I know I'm kind of glossing over the corruption that there was because there wasn't much of a centralized authority and information didn't move quite as quickly. However, that's here the violation of someone else's rights, it needs an answer. And unfortunately, there's really no good way to go about it unless you were to fundamentally change what America is. And that's like, I got to say this: if suddenly I'm looking down the barrel a nickel or dime, and that means 5 to 10 years, and I was told, well, you could pick where you go anywhere in the world. I'm like, Norway, baby. Because have you seen those prisons? Holy shit. They are nice, son. I mean, there's still prisons. You still can't leave.
The thing is, because this is a podcast where we talk about gamer stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. If you didn't hear, I heard we talk about gamer stuff sometimes. We had honor culture. We had honor culture at a greater extent in the past. But one of those things that I think people forget is our law is descended from English common law, which is descended from Saxon law, which is based on duress. And part of the reason for our legal systems being the way they are, the presumption of innocence and that everyone is held to the same legal standard, we hope, right?
Yeah.
Is because under duress, you could either suffer physical torment, right, to prove you paid your crime, or you could pay the weregild, you could pay the body price, right? And the reason that system fell apart, even though it was fair and equitable, because, do the crime, pay the fucking fine, was because rich people would do crimes and then walk away because money was nothing to them. So, I mean, ancient roots of our legal system, which you should use in your games, people.
But getting back to the comments here.
Yeah.
Like this is something I'm talking about right here. Once it starts going in this direction, the laws no longer protect the rights of people; they protect the criminals. It's just that simple, and it makes criminals out of people who otherwise would not be. This comment. I'm going to say this. Think about the stuff I haven't shown you.
Yeah, that's what I was joking about. I don't like to play
about stuff I haven't shown you. Do I have stuff I haven't shown you? Well, I didn't show it, so.
It's a baseball bat that is also a dildo.
Yeah, here's the thing about that neck knife that I purchased. It was cheaper than any pocket knife. That's the weird part. It was cheaper than any pocket knife, and on top of that, I was already familiar with the quality of it, so I had no problem purchasing one. And I ended up leaving it with my younger brother, and told him, use it for yourself, give it to my niece or whatever. And I really ended up needing it only a few times, but I was glad I had it. It's a good cutting tool. You never know when you'll need one. I've been carrying one since I was a kid, and I refuse to stop now for someone else's, their hysteria. Oh, it's a weapon. No, it's a cutting tool. Just chill out. But there it is. Here it's security, but with the addition of being allowed to carry firearms. Okay, this is something I should. This goes nicely with this particular topic, because with this, at one point in time, the officers used to carry firearms. Now this is before my time, but they would carry .357 Magnum revolvers chambered with 38 special hollow points, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is, carrying one of those inside a prison is kind of dangerous. And let me tell you why, because if an inmate gets his hand on that weapon, you're done. And probably so is your partner, so are probably some guys he wants to take out. So that was the mentality behind taking those out. When I first started, we had radios and keys in the dorms. Even in the cell blocks, that's all we had. And Of course, that's all you had. But they removed the radios and gave us these like body alarm type things, which they had two ways to set them off. There was like a little plate underneath magnetized to the bottom. It had a cord that went to a clip. You clip that clip onto like a belt loop or a belt keeper. So if the thing was yanked off of you to prevent you from activating it, that plate would snag and come off. And believe me, it came off pretty easily. And that would activate it. If you like the way I had it placed on my duty belt, I'll just kind of go with a waist shot here. All right, so duty belt would be here. So my thumbs would be right here on the buckle, and that body alarm would be, let's just say, over here. And the reason for that is I would keep my hands here. That's the way my self-defense stuff was taught. You keep them here. That way you can move them up. You can move them, you can move kind of like as you need to. And you kind of kept one hand behind the other, sort of like the way MMA fighters used to do it. I don't know if they're still doing that now. I haven't watched in a while. But from here, you could reach back and hit that button, or you could, wherever you had it placed. I usually kept it right around here. If it, like, it had the button that you pressed, that would activate it. It also had the little cord I talked about. And then it also had a feature where if it laid flat, if it laid horizontal for more than about 2 or 3 seconds, it would issue a warning beep. And after like another 2 seconds, it would activate. So this thing had like 3 means of activation. What would happen is once it's activated, the control center would then find out where that alarm's coming from, and they would radio out to the entire prison where that's coming from. Then you would have captains, lieutenants, yard officers. If you had like majors, lieutenant colonels, and colonels, they would be coming up too. I mean, it was like everybody would just converge on that one spot. And that was, I remember with them taking out the radios, I kind of thought it was a dumb idea. But then after reflecting on it, the reason that they did it makes sense to me. It's because they didn't want these guys to overhear something on the radio and organize. Because to be honest, there were about maybe 1,000 inmates, and we're talking 300 officers, and I think that was like total. So take all those who work the towers, the PBX, some other stations that weren't dorms. Now there's even fewer of us. So we were outnumbered at bare minimum 3-1. The one thing you did not want was these guys organizing. And that kind of leads me into something else that we did. We would kind of move these guys around from dorm to dorm. Like some people had a permanent dorm. That's where they were. That's where they stayed. But then you would have people moving out. You'd have new people or people moving from other dorms in. And that was to kind of create room in one dorm where all the new guys that were brand new to the institution, that's where they came in. The only permanent residents of that dorm were people who were disabled in some way, whether physically or mentally, or that's just where they were safest because, maybe they had enemies, and that was about as much protective. That's about as much protective custody as you could get, aside from moving them to the only cell block we had, and we only had one, and it housed about, I don't know, about maybe 52 after they removed the double bunks from there. And before it housed like 75, but it was overcrowded. So they took the double bunks out. So every cell in there was a single man cell. And that, even the cell block they had the body alarms, but they also had a radio. So if anything happened, you could radio, or you could hit that body alarm. Sometimes it was just faster to hit the body alarm. Let's see what we got here. U.S. and Canada need more reform and rehabilitation, but we also need to bring back capital punishment for some crimes. All right. I'll be honest with you. This might surprise people, but I'm largely anti-death penalty. It sounds weird, but hear me out on this. I'll tell you what. There was something that changed my mind was I was on this. There was this one guy I was following because I liked what he was presenting, and it came to about the time Tookie Williams was being executed in California, and he was largely against it. I was just like, hey, at the time I was pro death penalty. I was like, hey, the guy did what he did, tough rocks. But this guy actually decided to send out his newsletter, and he was stating his points. I was like, okay, well, whatever. And then another guy that I knew, person to person here, I knew him personally. We were actually sitting in one of the bars in my locality at that time, and we were talking it over. And that's when I found out he was anti-death penalty too. And I was like, why? How? I mean, this guy like brutally murdered some people. How could you be anti-death penalty knowing that? And he literally started like feeding me info. And my stance was I completely disagreed. But I was going to look into it. And that's all he asked was that I just look into it, which I did. And I found out a lot of his views lined up with the guy whose newsletter I was following. So I actually had some easy access to that information. The other stuff that he was mentioning, I kind of remembered. Back then I didn't write anything down, so I was kind of like, we're drinking, so I kind of forgot most of it. But I got together with him again, and we were talking about that. And it frustrated me because he was right. Like, it was more expensive. We're talking capital punishment was more expensive than just keeping them, in prison for life. It was a lot. Like, there were so many things I remember, like, my mind changed on it. However, with that being said, I think the burden of proof needs to be much higher and much more difficult for the state, because I mean I know we have some people who are watching from all over the world, and this is where I want to go with it. Here in the U.S., whenever you're accused of a crime, the state bears the burden of proof. They have to prove you did it beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that's why there are videos out there, especially here on YouTube, that are you just look up "don't talk to police" and you will see exactly why. Because when you talk to police, especially when they're questioning you, and you do so without an attorney present, you're basically helping them build a case against you. Stop doing that. And when they say anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, they're not implying, well, some of the things you say might be able to help you. No, that's total bullshit. Stop helping them build a case. And here's the thing. The West Memphis 3 case is the big one, because that was a case where apparently when you don't know your rights, you could fall into this trap. They thought that what they were able to tell police would actually, get the police to leave them alone, and it didn't. It worked in the exact opposite. So too many innocent people have been swept up into that, like the West Memphis 3, in my opinion, and not enough of a burden of proof has been put on the state to really prove that. And if you look at the West Memphis 3 case, the evidence was so circumstantial, and granted, Scott Peterson was convicted on less, but still you're talking about murder. You need to be damn sure these are the people you have, and this is what the motive was, and the means, the motive, and the opportunity, and this is what definitely happened based on this evidence. You need to be able to do that. It is not up to the accused to prove that they were innocent. There's the big difference. And the biggest thing about that is when we look at stuff like that, especially that's why I hate the media so much these days, is because they put all the burden of proof on the accused, and I'm like, that's not how this works.
Compounded by the fact that people have some weird ideas. I'm just going to kill the big one. No, the cops are not required to tell you they're cops if you ask.
That's true.
Never. What's
Very
more,
true.
The cops are not required to tell you the truth in custody. Ever.
The cops can even lie.
And now
They are allowed to lie.
And now something you can't do in America. I want to point out the U.S. did something right. Holy shit! Something you can't do in the U.S. depending on your locality, but you can do in Canada. Okay,
Yep.
is you can do certain kinds of honeypot based sting operations, right? They can entrap you. We don't allow entrapment. You can't set someone up to commit a crime and then have them almost commit the crime and then arrest them for intent. But you can
Yeah.
in Canada.
Yep. Also, there's this. There's a prison industrial complex that milks tax dollars by the bucket load from the prison business. Okay, this. Well, actually, let me get back to the previous point real quick on death penalty stuff. Just real quick.
Yeah, I have something to say about that.
I make exceptions in my anti-death penalty stance. I make exceptions. I've seen. I've tried to find it, but I can't. I was really hoping to find this. There was a guy. This was back in the mid to late aughts, I want to say, and he was convicted of murder. He showed absolutely zero remorse, none whatsoever. As a matter of fact, he was so flippant about the whole thing. He was actually given a life sentence, and he was being interviewed from prison, and he was like, "People die every day. The family should just get over it." And I was like, "That's a guy I would be like, nope, that dude needs to go."
Well, see, this is relative to what I want to say. You have two oppositional issues, and we've done the best we can. I think not enough people recognize why our system is the way it is, right? They assume that it was created by some asshole to do asshole things. There are people in extremity, and Littermensch here mentions two of them, like this family in South America that is truly awful things, and Jeffrey Dahmer and your Ted Bundys and whatnot. There are people who they have no way to contribute meaningfully to society because they are very ill and they are a lasting danger, right? And it's like, yeah, those people might need to be removed from the gene pool for everyone's safety, right? But the system is built the way it is because we agreed at a given point. You know, we thought about it long and hard and said, you know what? Nobody is equipped to judge who is the extreme unless they are obvious, unless they reveal themselves in some fashion. Nobody is equipped to say who the bad guy is, because once you make an electorate to do that, once you decide who decides, right? Not only is it open to corruption, which we all know about, it still happens, right? But you've now created a social elite who have your fate in their hands, right? That's why we did. That's why we both have high standards for judges, and it's why we have jury trials. So we said, look, one person cannot decide, but 12 people doing their civic duty is close enough.
Yeah. On top of that, I just want to add, anytime you're called to serve on a jury, I say do it. This is something I've been called to do about 3 times and never got on one. As a matter of fact, the last one that I did, believe it or not, I was doing it from this phone. I had it set up right here on. I have a like a little setup where if you've seen my shorts, same setup. It's a ring light. It's got a clamp on it. I didn't turn the ring light on. I just put the clamp on it, stuck it in the tripod, and there you go. And I was doing it all from my phone. And the last one, the first 2 or so, I went in person. And then this one, I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, but they were going to do it virtually. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had it set on me. And finally, apparently I got picked for selection, which is the farthest I've ever gone into that system. And they were asking me a series of questions. I had a lot of paint on my hands. I tend to talk with my hands. Everybody knows that. That's nothing new. But while I was waiting for them because I also had it plugged into my power brick here. I was painting. I was painting dungeon tiles, so I had paint all over my hand, and my conscious thought was keep them down here and just talk. And I lifted my hands to say something, and I got, Mr. Wolfgar, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And they're like, could you show us your hands again? I was like, oh, because there's like paint all over my fingers. He's like, is something going on? I'm like, no, I was painting. I was painting while I was waiting. And I actually heard another voice go, what relevance? And the attorney who was talking to me had to stop his line of questioning and move on. And when he moved on, I will never forget this. Mr. Wolfgar, are there any laws with which you do not agree? I said, yes, there are. And I got, thank you for your time, Mr. Wolfgar. And then the screen shut down. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Well, then I got flipped back to the very nice lady who was there. And when I was there with this lady who was like taking a little questionnaire before, there were others in that chat with me, and some of them were doing their damnedest to get out of it. And you could tell. And I was like, well, what just happened? I had no clue. And she's like, all right, Mr. Wolfgar, you've been excused, and we thank you for your service, and we'll probably see you in another 2 years. And that was it. Apparently, and this is something I do. I want to illustrate this. If there is a law on the books that you don't believe should exist, yes, even if the prosecution proves dead to rights, this guy did it, and you don't believe that law should exist because it serves no one. For example, someone, and I know this is probably not going to be a big thing these days, but someone has a couple pounds of weed in the trunk of their car. They get pulled over, and they're in a locality where that's not legal. They get arrested for it. They're going to go to trial, and it carries this hefty ass penalty if convicted. The prosecutor could dead right say, yes, this man violated this law. And you can look at that law and go, that shouldn't be on the books. That shouldn't be there. Not guilty. And if enough juries do that, the jury has to decide unanimously over guilt or not. But even if it's just you saying that, it hangs that jury. If enough juries are hung or enough juries rule not guilty, guess what? That law is then nullified because it's called jury nullification, because they cannot enforce a law when the entire nation is a nation of scofflaws. They can't do it. That's the way our system was set up. That's why they ask that question. And that's one of the questions they will use to screen, because they're like, if we can't secure a conviction, and they understand they want the truly dumb and stupid, the people who are very, very partisan, who don't think for themselves, they'll weed you out pretty quickly. So if you're looking to get out of it, that's really all it takes is just, display a desire to think for yourself. If you still manage to get on a jury and that just happens to come up, vote not guilty. I mean, you actually have more power than the president, the Congress, all of those state things. You have more power there than all of those combined. You can literally override them. You can veto them. You can kill their power right there. That's why I say jury duty is the most important civic duty anyone can perform. I've done it. It sucks having to get up at stupid 30 in the morning and get dressed and go down there and do all this crap. But at the same time, once you've done it, a couple of times, even whatever, you will actually understand why it's there. You will understand why you're needed. That's really one of the biggest differences between this country and others. So getting to this question now, a prison industrial complex that milks tax dollars by the bucket load from the prison business. Yes. And let me tell you where that really, really comes into play. and they're not private by any means. And just lost my co-host. They're not private by any means. They're the corporate run prisons, because every bed in there is a tax. It's a subsidy paid by the government, funded by taxpayers. And on top of that, since those corporate run prisons are all about profit, because they have that, anytime you have a business that is publicly traded or has investors, you now have a legal obligation to make them money, even though if you're an investor in any business, there is no guarantee you will make money. It's such a weird conundrum. It's like this weird dichotomy of things. The business is legally obligated to make you money off your investment, but you're not guaranteed to make anything. Like, how does that work? I don't understand that legal obligation, but that's beside the point. The point is, once that legal obligation's in place, and I'm going to say this, prisons are nothing more than a money pit for taxpayer dollars to go into.
I mean, there's a reason that one of my primary antagonists in the world of darkness is a monster who runs both a construction company and is part of the prison justice infrastructure. He builds the prisons that he imprisons people in to feed on their fear because he's a monster. Welcome to Boxco. We make everything. But real quick, I want to throw into there. Also interesting, you're Raven Wolfgar. You're from the South, but we have a gentleman or gentle person called Raven of the South. Related,
Cool.
But
I don't know.
So,
could be. Never know.
So Raven of the South says, "What do you think about the Black Dahlia? I still can't believe that we still haven't been looking after all these years. So we're never going to find the Dahlia, and we're never going to find the Dahlia for the same reason we can't find Jack the Ripper, and we can't find who actually took the Lindbergh baby. Not only are these crimes that are ancient in terms of the level of forensic and legal readiness, the systems our investigators had to figure stuff out, but these are crimes that only stand out for their brazenness, for their shock value. I'm not saying that the death of the Dahlia is not a horrible thing. It is. The death of anyone is awful, right? But sure, the Dahlia died. Have you ever heard of the Cleveland Torso Butcher? Because there are some theories that the same guy who did the Dahlia did that. And he used to kill hobos in Cleveland. They actually had Elliot Ness hunting for him, and they couldn't catch him. So what they did instead of catch him is they destroyed the hobo town on Kingsbury Run. They burned it down to get rid of a serial killer, right?
Well, on top of that, there are theories and good ones that H.H. Holmes, one of America's first serial killers, was Jack the Ripper, because the murder, the time frame fits and everything else, and that again, that's means, motive, and opportunity. It's easy to make that kind of conclusion and that logical conclusion, I think.
The thing that I was going to get at, though, is like, if we look at Jack and we look specifically at Whitechapel, right? Whitechapel was lower income. Whitechapel didn't have a lot of cops. How would it's like, okay, so Jacks were particularly awful. How many women died of other unknown murders while we were chasing Jack? Right? How many people got cut to pieces by weirdos while we were hunting the Dahlia? How many false positives were there where we had a crime that was the same person that we'll never know because we weren't to know? There's no way to know. There's too much information. It's too big. It's too complicated. And we still have that today. If you've ever heard of the Go-Go Beach murderer, or the fact that we might actually have murders on our southern border that are cartel murders as terror tactics, where they're basically mass murdering people and then mass burying them on our side of the border to show how hardcore they are. There are so many crimes out there, and frankly, our systems are stretched way too thin and always have been, and there's no way not to be stretched thin.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to this kind of thing, this is why I say while I think that all tax is pretty much theft, I'm also not naive enough to believe we can do completely without them. But I think I think there's a better way, and I think we should be looking at it. And I mean, what people think like is this like a national and state sales tax. I don't really think is such a bad thing because then you're thinking. And this is what people are thinking. People are thinking of the paycheck that they actually receive now, and they're thinking, oh, further on that on everything we buy. It's like no, think of your gross. So now you take home everything you actually earn. Now, whenever you go buy groceries and all that kind of stuff, you're actually paying far less than what you would now. The thing is, it kind of incentivizes government, or rather than government, the people, our employees. Let's put it that way. That's the best way I can put it. It incentivizes our employees to start living within their means, like we have to live within ours. And on top of that, they're incentivized to now keep the economy in a boom cycle. So now you're talking much better and clearer regulations on banks, much clearer regulations on other financial institutions that are acting as banks, stuff like that. They can't make these predatory loans. They can't make these predatory moves that they have been making. So you're looking at stuff like that. That kind of thing would, in my opinion, solve a lot of problems. You remove desperation from the equation, and suddenly it's not the cure all, but it's going to cure most of the ills that drive people to do things that would get them thrown in. On top of that, when you have these corporate run prisons, they're in, they're not interested in like if I went in, they're not interested whether or not I go out there and make a success of myself. They want to make sure I come back. They want that revolving door. They love that revolving door. That's their business.
The thing is, what you also don't want, okay, 'cause pertinent. You recall, of course, there were these idiots screaming, defund the police, defund the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the vast majority of them were simply saying, we don't need no cops. Those people were dumb.
Yep.
Right? But there were some people, the people who started that argument, the people who got drowned out by idiocy, saying we need to demilitarize the police. Right? That the police has become a sink where we just throw money for law enforcement without considering results, right?
Right.
And the thing is that even police have said so. I remember a press conference where an officer of some seniority was like, "Look, we're doing things that are not in our wheelhouse. We're supposed to be law enforcement, but we're also being social workers. We're being fire. We're being EMT because people call us for everything."
Yeah.
Right. Well, when the defund the police thing was getting real steam, right? The police of New York, quite famously, had a press conference and said, "Try it. Try defunding us. See what happens." Inferring that they would just not do their jobs. That's called extortion in any other business.
Well, understand this. When you're a cop, and this comes with the territory, because I've known people I worked with were street cops on their off time. Understand something. When I say they're doing that on their off time, one week you'd only work Wednesday and Thursday. The next week, those were the only 2 days you had off, and it rotated out like that.
Yeah.
So really, you only worked half the month.
Right.
Let that sink in. You only worked really about half the month. So you're making some decent pay there, but then you got all this free time. What do you do with it? Well, some people went and became volunteer firefighters, sheriff's department, wherever their local municipality was. That's where they went, and they supplemented that, and good on them. But I would hear these stories, and I would think that's not a default condition for any human being.
Yeah.
No human being should. It takes a special breed of person to get up, strap up, and go, okay, today I'm gonna subject myself to the absolute most stress I could possibly face.
Right.
And those men and women, they do it on a daily
I
basis.
my
To
thing.
me, it's no wonder that some of them do drink a lot, that some of them do have these problems. However, I'm going to say this: while I support those people who do it and do it on a daily basis, and it's a majority of them that do it well, the ones I absolutely will turn my back on and disrespect because I have none for them are the ones that are walking around on a crazy power trip all the time. And I've worked with
Right.
people like that too.
I
And
I
my suggestion to them is and this is how I've dealt with it. Hey, I've got this. I've got it. I got it. If I need you, I'll definitely let you know. Just hang back.
I
And the ones that will show you respect will actually do it. The ones that are just power trips, I would have to finish what I'm doing and take them aside and be like, if you ever do it again, I'll fuck you up right where you stand. I don't care who's watching.
I approach it kind of like how we approach, or we should approach, interaction with the armed forces. I uh, I don't care for the military, despite being a Navy kid. I'm like, military, but I support our boys in green. I support the guys at the bottom because they're just like me. They had opportunities and they had options, and they went, I will sell my soul to my government for a tour to maybe get some opportunity, to get some franchise. I can understand that, right? Uh, I generally don't have a problem with our boys in blue as long as they are well trained and as long as they are decent people,
Yeah,
because you're gonna find assholes everywhere.
true.
But I have some serious fucking questions about the guys at the top. When you stop wearing a uniform and start wearing a suit, and you stop thinking about the street and start thinking about your 401k and your stock options,
Mm,
right? At what point do you stop being a cop and do you start being a discount mafiosi that's legal?
mm, yeah. And this is a good one. Are there any types of non-lethal weapons like glue guns, foam guns, bean bags, shotgun rounds, rock salt, bear spray, etc.? I know there's some chemical sprays, but they're messy. Yes, um, I've had some experience with this, direct experience. As a matter of fact,
Face first.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and both direct and indirect. Okay, let's talk about the chemical sprays. We had when I started, we used something called Freeze Plus P, which is like how can I put this? I think it's what's called oleoresin capsicum, so it's an OC spray, and that stuff is food grade, which basically means I wouldn't recommend it, but you could spray it on a burrito and eat it. But I wouldn't recommend it. That shit burns, and it burns for a fucking reason. However, it's oil based, and yes, I have been both wiped in the eyes and sprayed in the eyes with it. You will your tears will run, snot will form, and yes, you'll be coughing and all kinds of craziness. Your eyes will look like that of a rage zombie from 28 Days Later. You're going to get the works. You're going to have like red, blotchy skin until it evaporates. Now, once it evaporates, and it doesn't take long to evaporate, it just feels like it takes an eternity because you're suffering through the whole thing. What ends up happening is you will then go into the shower. Like if you're like me, you shower in the morning. I do. I just don't. I have no sense of smell, so I don't trust BO. So in the morning, it's shower, it's deodorant, it's the works, just to make sure I don't smell bad. Um, but with this stuff, when it's sprayed on you, um, it sits there. Now your skin will clear up, your eyes will clear up, you'll be okay. But if you're like me and you step into the shower and then that water hits it, it reactivates. Oh, that's so much fun. Trying to get that shit out of your eyes again. So yeah, that can happen. We do have that. That was mostly reserved for the guys working cell block to a degree. There was another version. I don't think it was. I think it was like a little less. like you could get used to, I think, CS. You can't get used to OC. And I've seen people get straight up, like they just stand there and go ahead, spray away. And you hit them with this stuff, and they'd be like, okay. And then you wait, and nothing happens to them. And these were how you could tell someone was actually in the military, because they went through that gas chamber training and all that stuff that Angry Cops likes to make jokes about, because he's in the military, he knows. And I love his videos, by the way. Angry Cops is awesome. But yeah, you could like build up to that stuff, and it might irritate you a little bit, but some people, you spray with that stuff, it'll just piss them off. Some people, you spray with OC, it may piss them off, and they may have a bit, there's kind of a philosophy to go with that. If they can't breathe, they can't see, and they can't think, they can't fight. So some people will just fight through that anyway. It's just kind of how it is. Beanbag shotgun rounds. I have been shot in the leg with one of those. How they did that, that's a lot of fun. You actually have like, they'll have you like put a metal trauma plate right here on your thigh. So on the side of the thigh, and then they'll shoot you bang right there with it. And if you've ever seen Jackass, you saw Johnny Knoxville get shot right in the stomach with one, and he curled into a ball and hit the ground. And then the very next day, he's showing you the bruising pattern around that. And he's like, the initial impact sucked, but now going from like standing to prone is agony. Yeah. Yeah, we do have those. We also have like batons. We have bigger cans of the spray, at sort of like the Dog the Bounty Hunter cans. We have those, but after a while, now the way they train you is you're supposed to issue a 1 second burst with it and lay off. And the stuff in the big cans is a mist. So it's not a direct squirt. It's not a direct stream. It's a mist. That means you're going to be hacking up a lung. And let me tell you, apparently we had a problem in that some of the higher ranking officers who they got to use that kind of stuff, they would do the 1 second burst, then arm would go into the cell door, and they would just fog that cell up. Like it would be like me taking one of my old vapes that I threw out, double coiling it, dripping some juice onto it, and then just puffing away, re-dripping, puffing away, re-drip, puff away. The whole, like this whole place would be kind of hazy. It would be a little bit denser than that. And guess what? If you're in the cell right above that guy, or on either side of the guy, guess what? You were getting it too, because it's fogging up. So you would start with a can that sounded like, like heavy. And then you would end with a can that sounded like, so they would practically empty a can. That was an ongoing problem. This is where the Pinkertons were like, remember that? They were like, oh, but that's not what's reflected in our reports. Well, of course not, because the way the reports reflected, it was a 1 second burst. Subject was not compliant. A second 1 second burst was performed. Blah blah blah, until compliance was reached, and that's the big thing. It was until compliance was reached. Now, the way we're taught use of force is they go here, you go here. Yeah, it's a use of force continuum, and it goes back to, let me see if I can find it again. Shit, where was it? Yeah, here we go. Proportional force sounds good on paper. It should be a guide star, but adrenaline happens. That's absolutely correct. That's also where training comes into play. I could go on about that for days. But anyway.
The lack of training, the necessity of training in general.
Or just having training. Having training can now be used against you too, because how
dare you gatekeep, Raven?
Well, here's what I'm saying. All right, so if someone in some states, I know with this one, that's probably where a jury's going to go. And we've seen this. This has been in the news. Look it up, especially in the U.S. Some mugger attacks someone else, and that someone else kills them or injures them for life, disables them, whatever. Suddenly, that person's on trial, and well, that person had specialized training. How dare they? It's like,
I mean,
that
was in a movie.
No good enough, and that's why I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what the laws are.
That was in a movie we all saw, or we should have all theoretically seen. You saw Con Air, right? Yeah, Nick Cage is playing a Green Beret. He's out at having a good night. Drunken asshole will not stop. The muscle reflex is there. You can't tell your brain, don't do the thing I was trained to do, and he fucking ended a dude by accident. And
he ended a guy who threatened his wife's life, or threatened his life.
Right.
And he was getting beat down. He was outnumbered. And then the would-be murder weapon was removed from the scene. And then, oh, well, you had specialized training.
Right. How dare you do this thing we trained you to do?
Now, of course, there have been courts that have seen past this, and they're like, wait, what? Well, yeah, he didn't know he had specialized training. That's why you don't roll up on people like that. Not guilty. But that is one of those things. But
as an aside, real quick, because we're between things, Patty, how you doing? We were just talking about you,
Patty,
and Sylvia. Woo!
Sylvia's in the house. Here we go.
We'll get to some of those juicy.
We'll get some juicy in just a minute. Okay, I promise you. There is a story I'm going to be telling, and it's going to be very funny.
I have to tell this story about how I'm a school shooter.
But anyway, yes, we do have. They're not called non-lethal; they're called less than lethal. We do have something called an electronic capture shield, which is, it looks like a riot shield. It has two handles, and it's concave, and it has these metal bands all throughout it. It looks like a labyrinth. Also, it's also kind of heavy, despite the shield itself being plastic. It has a battery pack in between the handles, as a button on one of these handles. So when you're doing a cell extraction, you have to get all armored up, and this armor is heavy, and it's heavy for a reason. It's a stab-proof vest. It's a big helmet, big leather gloves, shin and knee guards, and all this other stuff. You have to get strapped up on all this armor. It's you and a whole bunch of other guys. Everyone has their hand on the shoulder of the guy in front of them. And then when that cell door opens, because this is what's called a cell extraction, they have to rush in, subdue the inmate, and then drag him out of the cell. This is what happens when they start flooding their cells, or they're just getting completely out of hand. They won't calm down. Every other measure has failed. So now we have to go in and we have to drag him out of there, and we have to relocate him and subdue him long enough for him to calm down, so that then we can start everything else. And everything else, I mean, like, we're going to have paperwork involved. We're going to have a watch like every 15 minutes, especially if it's a suicide attempt. And I know that's going to get dinged right there, but that's reality of the situation. I've had me and a guy that who's passed away that I used to work with, we had to deal with one of those. This electronic capture shield, though, when you run in, the object is to pin him to the wall, hit the button for about maybe a second, and it's like a taser. And what these electronic means are supposed to do, they're supposed to overwork your muscles, so they exhaust you. That's what it is. It's like getting a full body workout in a second, and then you're too exhausted, you're too stunned, you're too rattled to do anything. There's no amperage behind those volts. It's just enough to just overwork all the muscles and make you go, oh, fuck. And let me tell you how I qualified with that one was, you had to lean back on it, and then they hit the button, and boy, don't be too close to a wall. It'll send you through it. It's nasty business. But yes, those are the less than lethal types of equipment that we do have. But here's the thing: some of them, glue and foam guns, I haven't seen. We do have rubber bullets, which are meant to disperse a crowd. We do have wooden batons, and of course, riot shields, things like that. Uh, the rubber bullets, the way those work, they're in like a shotgun shell. You don't fire them directly at someone. You fire them toward the ground, and they hit the ground. And they spread out. They're going to hit you like in the shins, the knees, the legs, possibly other areas below the belt. You don't want that. Yeah, if one of those is fired at you, you will probably not be very happy. But yeah, we do have them, and let me tell you something. Any fight, any use of force comes with paperwork, and everyone involved is doing that paperwork. Everyone involved is doing that paperwork. So it doesn't matter whether you're a captain, a lieutenant, master sergeant, sergeant, cadet, does not matter. You could be a full bird colonel. You could be one of the wardens. And I cannot believe these people are calling me right now. What the fuck is this suspected spam?
Oh boy.
Well, fuck
Oh
off.
boy. Oh, okay. We're not gonna.
I'm podcasting. God damn it. Anyway, but paperwork. We're talking disciplinary reports on, whether it's one inmate or 10. You're doing one for every one of those who were involved in the fight or the disturbance. You're doing unusual occurrence reports, all kinds of stuff. And that's needed because, yes, CYA, it can stand for cover your ass, or it can stand for call your attorney.
Oh, it was extra fun. I was running a World of Darkness game, and I had a player who really wanted to be a hunter in a vampire game. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. And I had other players who were like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, no, we can totally do this. So they made a cop, and they wanted to be a cop that hunted monsters. And that sounds great, right? Right? Like, that sounds really neat. Except they had this problem. I kept having them do paperwork. And they're like, I didn't sign on to do paperwork. It's like, you said you wanted to be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
But why do I have to do all this paperwork? It's like, every time you pull your weapon to shoot a monster, if it's your service weapon, you have to clarify where those bullets went. They want to know. You have to, you're on your character sheet says your job, your occupation is police officer. That means you have shifts. You have to check in. You have to patrol. You have shit to do.
Yeah, now, this is not Miami Vice. Miami Vice and all these other cop shows, what they do is they gloss over the paperwork because it's mundane, it's boring, and guess what? You're going to have hand cramps. This is why I can't stand the color pink to this day, is because our disciplinary reports for inmates were sheets of this pink carbon copy paper. So what you did was you would take scratch paper, you would write the initial report, then you would, of course, go through and edit and make sure that it's worded correctly and run it by your partner, make sure it looks good. Then you would commit it to that pink paper, and then you would make sure that if you ran out of room, you made sure that you attached copies of the rest of the report. So if you had, if you're writing that one, you're attaching like 3 copies of the same thing written over and over. And then, you have to get those to control. Those have to go through channels. And of course, the inmate has to sign that they received a copy.
Okay, I gotta clarify something here because Utterman Sean is getting on me. No, I didn't make them do their taxes, but the context
we gotta handle that.
Yeah, the context of being police officers in a hunter game was they would go and they would do investigations in their mortal existence that wouldn't add up, that would become their hunts in their supernatural existence, right? Yeah, and that's all well and good. That's the logic. That's why you do it that way. The thing was trying to convince these players, very young players who were learning, about the idea of supernatural secrecy, right? It's not, I went and I hunted a monster and I shot him with my service weapon and now I can do paperwork that sucks. It's, okay, guys, we're going to go hunt a monster. We all got our illicit aftermarket cop gear. No badges, no numbers, no identification. And don't bring your service weapon. Don't bring your tracker, right? All of those steps that you would basically expect of a Shadowrun game, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you do it in Shadowrun, why wouldn't you do it in real life in a game?
Right. Yeah. So it's, and let me tell you something about teachable moments. Um, boy, oh boy, this goes back. I'm suddenly having days when I train people. I'm having flashbacks.
PTSD.
So let me tell you, some of the people I trained were some of the absolute best. Some of them like really just kind of rocketed past me in terms of promotions, and I was happy for them. Uh, because they would take what I put in front of them, they would pick it up and they'd run with it, and then they would, learn what they could do with it over time, and it helped them. And hey, I, so they passed me in rank. I don't care. That's great. I'm glad it worked for them. There were some people you couldn't teach a damn thing to. They came in knowing it all, and this is why these tropes in movies these days. That's why they irritate me so badly. It's because I've had a few cadets that were just they were just. I'll tell you this much right now. Let me pick an inanimate object. They would make this thing look smart. They would make this thing look like genius level IQ Mensa candidates next to them because they came with a bunch of wild stories and shit like that. They'd make this thing full of like little glass beads that I use for like tokens in my game. They would make this look like a little bundle of genius. And I was just, you can kind of tell who's bullshitting you and who's not. So they'd come in with their lines of bullshit, or they would just, they knew better than you, and you're like, really? Okay, explain how you're not a sergeant yet. And let me explain that real quick. Cadet, sergeant, master sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, full bird colonel, wardens. That was the entire rank ladder. That was the ranking structure right there. I still remember that to this day. So you would have someone who's been there, and the way it was when I started out, you had a 6-month probationary period. After 6 months, you either got your probationary period extended, you made sergeant, or you were fired. And that's it. And during that 6 months, you actually had no rights at all. None. You better do the best job you can while you can. That's just it. So some people that I know that I've trained with, out of all those people that I'm aware of, out of the 6 of us that went, 3 were like me. They made sergeant after 6 months. They got their stripes. They were good to go. One guy I know for a fact, he got extended. Finally got his stripes after, I think, another 3 months. So like after another 90 days, he finally got his stripes. And then there were some people, they either quit or they got fired. They just didn't last. And one guy in particular, young kid, you know, he would come in and just wild boasts, man. He was full of them. And there were times where, like, sometimes if they stuck them with me, it meant that maybe I could reach them where no one else could.
You got to reach these kids, Wolfgar.
God damn. And I'll say this. Out of all those, about half of them would actually take what I said and get it, and they would make it past their probationary period. They'd get their stripes. They'd be okay. The other half, I would know after about maybe a week or two of working with them, and I would look at my captain and be like, "That dude's not going to make it. Not going to make it." I'm keeping my eye on that one because that one's going to fuck up, and when they do, it's going to be spectacular. Just mark my words. I'm letting you know right now that one's not going to make it. And they would always ask me why, and I'd be like, "Well, that one's dumber than a bag of hammers. That kid does not know how to write. He can't spell. He can barely communicate, and he doesn't like. He can even read what's in print in these posted policies and not fucking get it. We have to like explain it to him." And one of the ways that I found, people tend to remember stuff that makes them laugh. So prison's a weird place to find a sense of humor, but God damn it, that's where I found mine. That's where I learned to quit taking myself so seriously. And in there, I would find ways of making a point that's funny, but understand my sense of humor is brutal. Like people around here, they don't get it. And when I would tell these people about, something and make them laugh, sometimes they'd get it. most often, if they didn't have a sense of humor, you'd see it fly right over their heads, and you're like, oh, God damn it. I have to explain this shit again. Dude, what the fuck? So, anyway, one guy I remember, I don't remember his name because that's how short a time we worked together. And you're talking almost a decade. We did not work together very long. He was out the door before we knew it. He was as backwater as they get. I'm talking real bumpkin. And I explained something to him one time, and this is the way he looked at me. He was kind of turned. And granted, he was looking to his right, but I'm gonna look here to my left because this is the way he was looking at me the whole time.
Oh my god.
When I hit the funny part, he went, and I was like, "All right, man, you gotta go. All right, get out. Go back to your door. Back. Because I was like, oh shit. Just a I was like, oh shit, he's fucked.
Candygram for Mongo.
Yeah. Definitely a Blazing Saddles Mongo moment. The other guy that would just non-stop. I actually had a test for some of these people. I would find no, this is living like marrying a cousin. This he was probably a product of one of those marriages. I don't know, but anyway, the other guy that I tried to train, I did it with everything I could possibly give him. I gave him. I had a test for him, and I was, of course, I know tech, to a degree. I can fuck around with Linux systems. That's probably enough to make me a little dangerous there, but I'm going to put this
okay,
in
but
the chat.
Can you understand GURPS?
I understand GURPS enough that you just use tools. It's just a toolkit. That's it.
Okay,
But
you are in fact a dangerous man.
I went. I remember this guy was talking, and I got this idea, and I suddenly grabbed the legal pad and grabbed one of my pens, and I started writing something down. And he's like, "What's that?" I was like, "Oh, I got to download these patches." He goes, "What patches?" I was like, "Security patches," and I'm writing them down. And he's like, "What security patches?" I was like, "Well, you don't know?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Dude, I know all about computers." Once he said that, I had him. He's mine. I got you. You're done. And I said, "Okay, well, here." I tore the sheet out. I was like, "I'll write it down again. Here, take this, put it in your pocket. You're going to need those patches." I was like, are you operating on Windows XP? Yeah. Okay, great. You're going to need those patches, dude. Those are security patches. They're meant to plug holes. Certain ports are open. You need those to do it. Here are the patches that I wrote down. Get ready. Oh, shit.
I'm on board for fuckery of the highest order.
Here comes the fuckery of the highest order. This is what I wrote down for him. And I told him
Jesus
to grab.
Christ.
I told him grab these patches and download them, and then just right click and install. Those were the instructions I wrote down, and I gave them to him. All weekend.
Raven Wolfgar, man of the people.
All weekend, while I'm doing internet radio and everything else, he is sending me messages over MySpace with, "Dude, I can't find those files."
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I am doing internet radio, so all you're hearing, this is what you're hearing the entire time. This is all you're hearing. And then this guy is messaging me, and in the middle of everything, I went, oh.
You can't decide if you're proud or disappointed.
God damn. So they heard that, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I just went right back into my thing. I knew he wasn't listening. There's no way he could be listening and then messaging me like that. I was like,
son of a bitch.
God damn it. These people are pissed. I'm going to kick their ass for this shit.
There's going to be some ass kicking tonight.
All right, let's fuck with them.
Let's do it.
Hello? Hello? Fuck them.
Oh man, couldn't at least be someone entertaining? Couldn't at least be another human being to fuck with?
Well, actually, that phone's battery is pretty shot, so it doesn't last long.
Ah,
Uh, oops. Anyway, yeah, I got these messages all weekend, and I uh, I ended up having to train him again. A captain comes in, and he sends him off on a break. Sits down with me, and he's like, "Well, what do you think?" I was like, "He's not going to make it." He's like, "Why do you say that?" I was like, and I showed him. I wrote these down. I was like, "This
oh
is what I
no,
handed him." I
oh
was like,
no.
This was my test." I said, "I have MySpace messages from him. He actively searched for this shit, and he's looking. Now, this is my captain at the time. Doesn't really know a lot about computers. He just knows, turn one on, use this program, use that. He doesn't know much about inner workings or command line or any of that stuff. He doesn't know about viruses and boot trojans and that stuff. But he saw that, and he went, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Yeah, kid's stupid. Kid's fucking stupid, and he's gonna make a real stupid mistake." I had seen pictures of this kid's wife, and goddamn, I was like, "Dude, how the fuck did you win that lottery?" And
We will never
we
know.
all kind of discussed it, and we were like, "Yeah, I don't see that marriage lasting very long."
We
Sure
will
enough,
never know how they do this.
oh, sure enough, he comes in. Apparently, the marriage is over. Who, who knew, right? So, so, he's playing it cool, and when I work with him, he doesn't seem to be, really wearing it on his sleeve or anything. I'm like, oh, maybe everything's all right there, but I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop. Sure enough, it was when another sergeant was training him. Apparently, he broke down to an inmate and started crying about it. I went, oh no.
Don't,
And I
don't.
have told him time and again, don't share anything personal with these dudes.
Yeah,
Don't do
they're
it.
not your friends, buddy.
No. And it was that inmate that he broke down to that went up, told the dorm sergeant, "Hey, you might want to get him out of here." He's telling me about his home problems. He
we,
doesn't need to be in here. When an
wait a minute.
inmate's telling you
Wait a
that,
minute. Yeah, when the
they,
inmate's like, buddy,
yeah,
please don't
they,
share.
so they ended up letting him go, escorting him off the compound that night. And I looked at my captain, and he goes, "Don't say it." No, Wolf, don't say it. I was like, "I fucking told you so." It's like, I fucking told you that you had to go stick him over there. What the fuck? I was like, he needed to be under direct supervision. I was like, Jesus, this is crazy. Here's where I'm going to get to the juicy part. Okay. And I'm going to preface this by saying this is where we get into some sensitive territory here. Okay. So I know there haven't been any more questions. So now I can really settle into this one. All right. Understand something. I know many of us have seen the exploitation movies. We've seen like Orange is the New Black. I'm certain some of us have seen at least some of it. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's an institution of men or an institution of women. It does not matter. Doesn't matter if it's a same sex thing um, or opposite sex thing. Whether or not the inmate initiated it and actually wanted it or not, anytime staff has sex with inmates, it is considered rape on the part of staff. That's it. That needs to be said because all that stuff you see about like officers just plugging away and getting away with it, that's not a thing. Not a thing at all. Or they just get fired because it looks bad. Nope, that's not a thing. Oh, they'll be fired. And yes, it looks bad. But how it happens, they're just home. They have a new job and a new life now. Nope, not a thing. I can tell you that right now. Oh, they got rehired? Nope. Mm-mm. Never again. Okay. That is not a thing. And I'll tell you that because we actually had an incident where, um, and I'm only telling it from my point of view. I'll kind of fill in the blanks later. We had an inmate and a few others suddenly get locked up for investigation. These came out of what's known as the honor cottage. The honor cottages were it was like a dorm, but they had their own room, no doors. Bathroom and shower were still communal, but they had a little more privacy there, and the doors were kept unlocked. Like an inmate could just walk in and out as they please. They normally didn't because that's where the trustees were housed. So, and there's very strict criteria for getting trustee status and keeping it. So these guys, some of them were short time. They didn't want to smoke. So they kind of kept to themselves mostly. But we usually had both men and women could work that dorm because their station was outside. They only had to go in and make rounds every half hour or so and log that in the log book. There's paperwork right there. You had to keep an accurate log. If you were found falsifying documents, yeah, that was your ass. 9 times out of 10, fired. Not even kidding you. So we did have female staff, one of the COs, working in that honor cottage, and she kind of took a shine to one of the guys in there. And yep, they had a relationship, and it got found out. She was fired for it. Now that's as far as it went, as far as I know. That's the blank I'll fill in.
Patty has
But
now filled in the cold terror.
What I knew of it was these guys it was like 2 or 3 of them got locked up, and then one of them received a letter from her. And I almost handed it out. I was separating the mail by cell. I was working the cell block that day. I was separating it by cell so I could just hand it all over. But then I saw the name that it came from, and I went, wait a minute, I know that name. And I put it aside. I went and I delivered all the rest of the mail. I took that one and I called up my captain. I was like, hey, I need you to come take a look at this. He comes in, he sees the name. He goes, yep, I'm going to need that. And he forwarded it to our investigator because nothing says, we've got you like you sending a damn letter. So apparently, yeah, that letter was proof enough there was a relationship. I don't know how deep it went. That I'll say. I don't know whether they actually or not, but I can tell you this much: this is where it's going to get juicy.
I am now filled with cold terror, but I also want to thank Patty for more fuckery I can pull in my urban fantasy games.
What, this thing right here?
Yeah. Never occurred to me that they might be trying to record my voice for AI.
That is exactly why I go and do different voices or do bad accents, because then what are they going to do? They can't pin it on me. But anyway,
you and Iglesias, huh?
Damn. Yeah. I've performed for crowds before, but I was not expecting to perform for Assassin's Creed. Wait. Who's number 1? Jeff Dunham. Wait, you guys aren't offended? No, I kidding you.
I don't know Immortal Rising comic book, but I am interested and I want to see your literature.
Yes, indeed. So here's where the whole thing gets juicy. Because oh boy, okay. So I'm going to say this: there are reasons I didn't choose being a street cop. Primarily among them, I can't stand to see bad things happen to kids. That is likely to send me over the edge. I also can't. There are just certain things I can't really deal with. Like I knew that going in, so I was like, maybe that's not my thing. I also knew, like, juvenile corrections is not really a big thing. I think that's like county level mostly. Like, I don't think we have any uh, adult or juvenile state facilities. If there are, I don't know of them. But I've had some like 18-year-olds in my dorms before. I had one guy who was like 17. That was as young as they got. And yeah, he got tried as an adult. Later on, he did get released. It took like a couple of years. I think it was like 19 or 20 before he actually got released. And it was from a court trip. So they had to bring him back, get all this stuff together, and then he was out. I don't know what the particulars are of that. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Um, as a matter of fact, going back to that for just a second, there's a scene in the movie The Fugitive. I'm sure you've seen where Tommy Lee Jones is chasing down Harrison Ford. He corners him. Harrison Ford says, "I didn't kill my wife," and he goes, "I don't care." And that's well, yeah, but there's a reason for that. It's because we are there to maintain security, custody, and control. Right. Guilt or innocence, guilt, not guilt, does not matter. That is not up to us. That there are channels for that. That's not up to us. We can't do anything with that. If you're there, I have to treat you like I treat everybody else. That's the biggest thing I can give people is be firm, be fair, be consistent. That's the advice I can give you. If you're not going to do it for one, don't do it for another. If you're going to do it for one, be ready to do it for another. That's just how it works. And stay that way. That's the only thing about you they need to predict. They don't need to predict when you're going to make rounds. They don't need to predict who you're going to shake down or why. They need to be able to say, okay, if I fuck around this way, I'm going to find out that way. That's what they need. And in my opinion, game masters, dungeon masters, you're the absolute best at it because what rules you don't know, you will learn. You can make judgment calls whenever possible. You get advice from others. I think that's great training going in.
I mean, it's called Dungeon Master for a reason.
And basically, my job was a literal dungeon crawl for eight and a half years, stuff like that. But
now your mission, kids, is to go figure out what was Raven's class while he was a prison guard.
As a matter of fact, we actually had officers who would lead religious services. I'm not kidding you. I was the only, to my knowledge, I was the only pagan officer in the place, and I wasn't about to let that slip. No way. That was something I thought, inmates could probably use that against you, or they use it to defy you. So I was like, nope, not gonna bother with that. Not gonna put that out there. But anyway, another thing I could not do, and I knew it going in, was women's corrections. Thank fuck there was only one prison that housed women, and it was about 2.5 to 3 hours away. That's a hell of a hike. I'm not driving that. No way, no how. The prison I worked at was 3 miles from where I lived. So I could make that walk in about an hour and a half. I mean, it's hot and muggy a lot down there. So we have inclement weather. We got all kinds of craziness. But I mean, if you were driving it, take you about 10, 15 minutes to reach the joint. So we might have to do this again because there's a lot more I could talk about. The reason I haven't turned this into a prison YouTube channel is because of the links in the description down below. Those people, Christina Randall, Jessica Kent, Joe Guerrero, Josh over at Lockdown 23 and 1, I think they have some of the absolute best content on the subject, and they're telling it from the inmate's perspective. I think those are good channels to check out. I didn't think that I could do it any better, so I just kept it. People are now asking me about this, so I'm like, okay, I'll do these little Q&As on occasion. I don't mind. But I knew I couldn't do women's corrections. I was like, nope, no, sirree, thank you, no.
Well, but actually, real quick, Party at Ground Zero, that's actually the joke. Wargaming in its original incarnation in the 19th century and 18th century was taught in schools. Military schools used wargaming as a mechanism to teach battlefield tactics.
And
But
also, it's where our hobby comes from. It's where our hobby stems from.
But if you're reaching your terminus there, Wolfgar, perhaps now I should tell you how I'm a school shooter, because I think you'll love this story.
Let me tell this one. This is
All
going
right.
to take a little bit because there's
All
a
right.
lot of context that goes with it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure everybody knows by now that my the two things on a woman that will absolutely make me just go are really dark hair and these bright blue eyes. Think Linda Carter, Amy
Wonder
Lee from
Woman.
Evanescence. I think Crystal Gale even had that, but she like her hair reached her ankles. If you're not familiar with her, I would definitely look into her. Just to me, that is like beautiful, and those are two things that'll just make me go. I like tater tots. I like tater tots.
Just because you're smarter than the guys you train doesn't mean you can't be reduced to their mental level.
Yep, past their mental level. Their mental level is here. I'd go, So yeah, it would reduce me to a blubbering pile of thumb. I can't brain today. I have to dumb. That's what it would be. So, now I'm tempering this with the fact that we were all asked during roll call to volunteer for a trip. Now, going on a trip means you're putting on like a Kevlar vest. You're strapping up with a 357 Magnum, chambered 38 special. You're off the compound for the night. That means no dorm. And I was all kind of ready for that. I was like, yep, that's me. I was the first and only one to volunteer for this trip. Not knowing what kind of trip this was, I was just like, it's a trip. I'm going. Yep. And overtime, baby. Yeah. All right. And they told me what the date was. I'm like Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right. They told me what the date was, when it was going to be. So I had to get up extra early that day to make it in kind of early so we could get the guys there on time, so we could get the guys back on time. I had no idea what the trip was. Oh, they did tell me it was a group trip. It was a trip for an inmate organization. They were having like this big convention of sorts. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it wasn't but about like maybe a few days before the actual trip that I find out who I'm paired with. And that person that I'm paired with is telling me, oh, yeah, have you heard where we're going? I'm like, mm-mm. I'm outside having a cigarette. I'm just like, no, where are we going? And she told me, oh, we're going to LCIW, which is the women's prison. I'm like, fuck off. No, this bullshit. Because I'm thinking she's trying to rid me. And she's like, no, that's where we're going. I'm like, oh, fuck off. No way. No way. It's bullshit. And the whole, she makes her way, I make mine. And the whole time I'm going, oh, you gotta be fucking shitting me.
You're doing that. You're doing that Tracy Morgan thing the whole way. You're like, no, hell no.
No.
Fuck no.
And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to go talk to the captain, because if this is true, maybe there's a way I can get the fuck out of this. So I go and I talk to my captain. I'm like, is that true? And he's like, yeah. I was like, what? Why didn't you fucking tell me? I never would have signed up for this if I knew this where we're going. He's like, yeah, but I think you can handle it. I'm like, motherfucker, are you serious? And then he and another guy I work with, they're constantly talking about it in my presence. Oh, they'll undress you with their eyes. Oh, there's this, that, and the third going on. I'm like, and I'm stuck in this
you
shit.
Motherfuckers.
I'm like, you asshole. Fuck you. And that's when the captain hits me with the advice that I would need going in, because apparently, like, our guys carried their ID cards in their pockets or wallets or whatever. They wore theirs. So he's like, make sure you're reading IDs, because, prison inmates and staff will be wearing IDs. And most of the staff are not going to be like uniformed officers. They're going to be just there. You won't be able to tell them apart. And I'm like, how the fuck would I not be able to tell them apart? So now he's already, I'm a guy, I love boobs, man. I'm into boobies. And he's telling me I have to now stare at that. Oh, great. That's just Fucking beautiful. Number one, you're telling me to stare at tits. Oh, that's
You
wonderful.
must resist the urge to say, I am not staring at your boobs for work, I'm staring at your boobs for fun.
No, that's the beautiful thing about being light sensitive is having shades on all the time. And I had these wraparounds that everybody called my Darth Vaders because they thought that's what they look like. They look like Darth Vader shades. So I have my Vader shades. I was like, okay, well, at least it will hide that. And now my stomach is doing cartwheels and all kinds of acrobatics. It's doing the flying trapeze. I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. Day of, we get our guys rounded up. We get them in the van. We're on our way there. And the whole time I am sitting there, I have been psyching myself for like 5 days. Like, dude, this is not like the movies. These are going to be like, most of them are probably going to look like truckers, dude. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. You know, we get to the place. And once we get past the perimeter fences and the front gate, it looks like a college campus. The place is beautiful. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they got women taking care of it. I imagine it's going to look pretty good. And then we get our guys unloaded and we're starting to make our way there. And I'm noticing all the other male officers that have come in. And I'm the most physically fit one there because I did martial arts and I did a lot of running. I did some weight training. And these guys, most of them look like 200 to 300 pounds of donut batter and coffee, all just held together by a fucking gun belt.
You are aware that your bosses back at your home base
are laughing their asses off. And I'm like, and I'm looking around. I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. I'll be fine. I'll be okay. And then I'm looking at the inmates of LCIW, and I'm like, I'm going to kill them if I make it off this fucking compound. I'm going to murder every one of them. I will bury them in my backyard. I will extract their souls and put them in a jar. I'm like Alex Jones in my head. I'm going to be killing these people. These people are scum. You know, I'm hearing this in my head. I want heads for this shit. Because after all the psyching out I have done of myself, all that went away. I was trying to talk myself out of, oh man, they probably look like truckers. You know, they probably all look like, the butch of the group. Nope. Very few of those did I see. And I'm seeing like some of these women, I'm looking at them like, where were you when I was in high school? Jesus, probably could have kept you from this, and I'm like looking around going, I'm fucked. Yep. I'm fucked. Mm-hmm. They're gonna have sheriff's deputies waiting right outside for my ass. And we get our table, we get situated, and I'm sitting down and I'm like, I want to go out for a cigarette, but I don't want to move.
Your name is now Chum.
I'm just gonna sit right here and I'm not gonna move. And now my fucking inmates are talking. Hey Sarge, we're gonna find you a wife in here. I'm like, fuck off. And they're laughing. Yeah, we're gonna find you a wife. Don't worry, man. We get you hooked up, man. Shut up. Fuck off. All right. And finally, I'm getting myself in the headspace where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get up and go have a cigarette. So I'm letting my partner. I'm gonna be just outside having a cigarette. I go outside. I'm having my cigarette. Here comes one of the majors, and bam, she ain't looking bad neither. So she's like, hey, my lighter just broke. You got one? I'm like, absolutely. So I'm lighting her cigarette. We're talking and everything. And we just had this really cool conversation about, where I work, where she works, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, hey, if we heard your place was we were actually under threat of closing once. She's like, I hear it was under threat of closing. If it ever closes, you can come work with us. And I'm like, no. I'll find another job. It's good. I'm good. It's just like, why not? I was like, I know me and I don't trust me. Okay. I will find another job. I'm good. It's just like, oh yeah. She goes, I hear that a lot. But don't worry. Like, she's like, don't worry. Most men come in here, they work and they're just fine. I'm like, I'm sure. And good on them, man. Strong motherfuckers. I'll give them that, but not me. So I get back in. We actually had dinner there. And I'm like gathering up trash and everything for me and my partner, and I'm going to throw it away, and I bump into somebody, and I hear, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Ah, it's my bad. I wasn't watching where I was going." And me and this other person talked for a couple minutes, and something told me, "Look down." I still have my Vader shades on, and I look down. There it is, right there. She's an inmate. I look up at her face again, and there it is, that hair and eye color. And she's got a set on her. Oh no. Now I'm like, fuck. The gods hate me. This is a test, and I'm going to fail spectacularly. And right then, I decide to cut the conversation short, go back to my table, and just leave this shit alone. Somehow, throughout the course of this night, I'm trying to find places to kind of duck her, and she's finding me, and it's pissing me off. I finally see what's going on. She would be looking around for me. I'd just kind of fade back, and then my guys, she'd go talk to them, and they'd point me out. Motherfuckers.
and they're all like, they're all like quietly laughing,
smiling, and I'm like, I'm pissed. So, like, I'm trying not to engage with her, And the thing was, I had nearly given her my phone number. I got the area code out, and that's when that voice went, "Oh, down." And when I looked down, she had the area code, and I gave her the rest of the phone number as, I'm not shitting you. I thought she's probably a little too young to remember this. 867-5309. Call Jenny. Yeah. I was like, call Jenny. So she actually took it and pocketed it. No, I got your phone number. I'm like, yeah, I'll bet you do. And as we're leaving, once it's time to leave, I'm like, thank fuck. Get to the goddamn van. We get them all loaded up, and one of them's like, hey, Sarge, look behind you, man. Look behind you. I'm like, what are you talking about? I look, and she's standing there waving and smiling, and I'm like, get your ass in that goddamn van. We're on our way back to the compound. I am thankful. I'm like, thank fuck I'm not there. Jesus Christ, thank fuck I'm not there. We're on our way back, and they're like, yeah, we just found Sarge's wife. Oh, did she get your phone number? I'm like, when I find out which one of you motherfuckers was doing that shit, I am going to take your fucking souls out, and I'm going to put them in a jar on my fucking mantle at home. Understand? Suddenly, that conversation shut up. We get back to the compound, get them unloaded, back to their dorms, and I get all the paperwork for that trip and everything done. It was uneventful. We get all the equipment put away and checked in. And I'm going to hand my captain the paperwork. He's like, hey, Wolf, check it out. You're being transferred. 2 weeks, that's where you're going back to LCIW. I said, you just got my 2 weeks notice. And I just handed him the paperwork. He goes, what? You wouldn't want to go? I was like, fuck no, and fuck you. I'm like, you motherfucker. You let me do this knowing this is where I was going. And he's laughing his ass off. He's like, yeah. He goes, so next trip that comes up, I was like, don't even look at me. Don't do it. It was the only trip I ever made out there. It's the only time I've ever been in one. It's the only time I've ever been interested in being in one, because giving me handcuffs and turning me loose in a place like that, yeah, great idea. Anyone want to know what a strip search really would look like when I'm done? I don't think so. Thanks, but no. Because that shit, and I'm gonna tell you this much right now, if you ever choose this line of work, you're going to see some shit. Let's just say you're as fortunate as I am, and your entire career is somewhat uneventful. You're still going to see some shit. I've seen more dick than I've seen of my own. I've seen more ass than I've seen of my own, and believe me, that was a lot of ass. I've actually seen people die. Like, I'm not, like, no bullshit. I've seen, and granted, it was a heart attack that I saw, or the outcome of one. I've seen women in cells for incels. I think that's what the pen pal sites are probably for. But anyway, uh, by the way, if you're thinking about writing someone who's locked up, I can tell you this right now. If you ever do find someone that really, really just they're looking for a pen pal, you're going to know because they love getting mail. They love talking with people out here. They love knowing what's going on out here. Some of them, that's all they're looking for. There are some that are going to try and scam you out of sending some money or something like that. I say, you know, if you've established that relationship with someone who's on the inside, your friends, you know each other well enough, and you start sending some money, believe one thing, they'll probably appreciate it, but they'll more likely just say, I'm just looking for a pen pal or something like that.
You'd do better sending them a pack of cigarettes. But
you can't. You can't.
I know.
But
I know. I'm just saying logically.
Some of those places, I think a lot of those places have actually banned smoking on the compounds these days. Which,
man.
let me tell you, that's a black market. I've seen that black market stuff. I've seen that before. I've seen gambling sheets. I've seen gambling debts go really, really bad. Just a couple quick stories. I came on the compound one day, getting ready for roll call, and talking with some of the guys that were already on shift. We heard chaos over the radio. Suddenly, they had to split mid conversation. No idea what the fuck's going on, but everybody's headed to a dorm because there was a body alarm activation. Next thing you know, they're getting ready for trips just like that, and it was bad. They couldn't tell us anything, and then they would have, I think, me and another guy. They kind of reliably called on us to do trips, so then we had to follow after roll call, straight up that way. One guy, where the chaos came over the radio, one guy had his throat cut like 3 times. Thankfully, these were shallow cuts. These were not deep. A millimeter or so deeper, and this dude would be dead. But that came because one inmate had made parole. He didn't want to do parole. Parole in down south is pretty tough. And he wanted to know how to flatten his time out. That means do the entire thing. That way, once released, he's done. And someone was like, man, short of trying to kill somebody, that shit ain't going to happen. You're going to go, man. And he took a like a disposable razor apart, took the blade out, put it in the head of a toothbrush, melted down the bristles, made a nice little holder out of that, and just took 3 swipes across this dude's neck. Thankfully, it didn't kill him. A lot of blood, big scare, lots of stitches, but didn't kill him. But this dude got all kinds of like his good time taken away. Dude was in the cell block. He was being transferred. It was a big deal. Another guy, I only got to see pictures of this, got his face rearranged by another dude who had a couple padlocks and a sock. That's some pretty intense shit to have to see. There was one guy, never gave me any trouble. He was the guy who died of a heart attack, and that was despite our best efforts to keep him alive. Like there was just no reviving him. I actually kind of saw the lights go out. His eyes were already kind of open, and you could just kind of see the lights go out. Like despite our best efforts, he was just gone, and we had to call the family and let them know that he died of a heart attack. As tragic as that is, as sad as that is, it did happen, and I don't think he had but like another couple years left to go. Like he would have been out and free and clear, but I've seen that. So my advice is get ready to see some shit. Really mentally prepare yourself. It's kind of weird in there, but let's see. Send a touristy postcard, put some money on the commissary tab, no return address. Yeah, you could do that.
But I want to point out, Party at Grand Zero also says prison dating, women in cells for incels.
Yeah, I did pull that up earlier. It's kind of a crazy thing, but working in there, I can tell you, I've seen some pretty amazing shit too. I've seen some of these guys. They do have a hobby craft section. Some of those guys have amazing skills because all they have is time, and what they do with it, they just dedicate the shit out of it to that one thing that they know how to do and do well. And dude, before you know it, I mean, if you want, like say you have a hardcover book or something like that, like this one. you have something like this, yeah, you can actually hire an inmate to create a leather dust cover for this book. It might be kind of expensive, but you can actually have them do that, and that's completely 100% legal. There's paperwork to go along with it. Now, here's the thing: once you make the deal's made, and the deal does not change no matter what. So you have to be ready for that too. I used to have inmates shine my shoes for like 50 cents to $1. That's something else that could be done. And let me tell you, mirror finish. Like, you look down into the toe of your boot, and you will see your face in it. They're that good. They dedicate themselves to one thing, and they do it well. Okay, this is a good point. With all of our technology, we have not updated our penal system beyond sequestering criminals from society. There is a good reason for that. Let me tell you, out of the population that I dealt with personally, I'd say about 75 to 80% of them probably wouldn't be there if they shut up, lawyered up, and kind of just let their attorney handle things. They wouldn't be there. I'll say another 15% were just fuck ups and repeat fuck ups. And they blame the world and everything around them, and never once looked at their own responsibility for some of the shit they did. There was one guy that blamed Marilyn Manson for him being the reason he was locked up. But when you start getting the entire story, turns out he was locked up because he backhanded the fuck out of his stepson. Stepson had become a little rebellious. Stepson drove him insane, and he just, ow. And that's considered domestic battery or domestic abuse. Something to that effect. Anyway, that's why he was in there. Wasn't in there because of Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson was just kind of an incidental thing. It was something his son was listening to, and he didn't quite know how to handle it. So he proceeded to, and that's why he was in there. And then there's that little sliver. There is a very, very deep little minority. The last part. That's the only place that they can live, because there are some people that are legit fucking inherently evil. They're psychopaths, they're sociopaths. They're not there because of any desperation. They're there for a good fucking reason. They're there because they don't have any remorse. They don't have any regard for you or me. Whether or not they live to fuck with other people, they live to see them suffer. That's what they live for. They're just, and some of them are deceptively fucking evil. And guess what? You can't just let them loose in society with a social worker. It's not going to work. You can tell when you meet them, when you have firsthand experience. I know there are a lot of people that they have these ideas that we can do certain things. I'm telling you right now, there's a reason I'm like, no, it's not going to work. For most, the obvious answer, shut up, lawyer up, leave it at that. Don't talk to anyone, not the cops, not your cellmate, no one over the phone, because that shit's recorded. Know how I know? I've listened in on recordings. Yeah, we get to do that.
I mean, it's why I have a difference of opinion with some of my friends. Back when I was in community college, you get around with your friends, you'd be bullshitting, and somebody would always start with, don't trust the cops here, don't trust the cops there, don't trust the cops in these places because they dirty, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that there weren't dirty cops out there. God knows there are,
yeah,
right? But I always ask the base question, well, what were you doing that made the cops take notice of you, right? And the answer was always the same. It's like, well, I shouldn't have to worry about that. Mm-hmm. It's like, bro, if you're walking around my neighborhood and you're doing weird shit, I'm gonna notice you. Mm-hmm. What the fuck do you mean it's not your job to be concerned that you're acting and doing things in a way that the cops take notice of you?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're not doing nothing, then logically the cops shouldn't care about you. But if you're doing something that the cops gonna take notice of, don't be mad at the cop for your fuck ups.
Well, this is a good one. Did you ever have to deal with inmates who are institutionalized? That seems like the saddest thing ever. Actually, yeah. But there's an added component to this. Okay, so let's talk about a few movie tropes. The evil captain of the guards. We're going to go with the Shawshank Redemption on this one. I'm glad the Green Mile finally broke that.
Well,
Uh,
actually, as I recall, the captain of the guard in the Shawshank wasn't that bad, but the warden was a piece of shit. But
oh no,
that's
no,
another trope.
Hadley was fucking terrible. Hadley
Are,
was not a guy I want to work for or with.
well, are we talking about Clancy Brown, or are we talking about a
Yeah, we're
different
talking
guy?
about Clancy Brown's character.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't want to work with that kind of guy. He
right.
is just looking for any reason to brutalize somebody. And in that time period, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, he probably got away with it as long as he did, because that kind of thing could happen. And when he beat that one guy to death, yeah, nobody's gonna talk. And there's a reason for that. It's because he made an example out of that one guy, and he got everybody in line. That can happen. If you don't believe that a large group of people can be controlled just by making an example of one person, you're out of your mind. You've never seen a prison structure before, and I guarantee you it can happen. I've and I'm going to say this, I've done it myself. You just write one guy up, or you have to cool off a dorm. You make an example out of one or two people. Suddenly, the whole place is cooled off. You could hear a mouse pissing on a cotton ball in a soundproof room from fucking Tijuana, and that's a fact. So you need to cool someplace off. Yeah, all you got to do is make an example of one. Now, the way I made an example of one was legit. The way Hadley made an example was by beating a guy to near death and then just letting nature take its course. That I don't condone, not at all. But I would warn them beforehand. I run this dorm either by fear or by choice, by what was it? Uh, through fear or respect, by choice or not. This is my fucking dorm. You're just living here. I run this show. And then after that, if they got out of line, that's my dude right there. And guess what? If I can get another one, that's my dude right there. That's my 2 shakedowns for the night, because we did inventory on his stuff. If I happen to find anything in there, it's incidental. It'll come up in a different report. That's more paperwork I got to do. I would prefer not to do paperwork. So my advice to them was, if you make me do paperwork, I will make it stick. I will make it haunt you for the rest of your bid. That's just how it is. But this thing, we had a couple of guys who had been there a very long time. One of them, he was serving life, but the thing was, in order to be housed in our institution, you had to have a possible release date within 20 years. This guy was serving a life sentence. Now, he had life with parole. He was also awaiting a governor's signature. So whatever was on the governor's desk, if the governor signed off on that, we would have to do an emergency release. This guy was in his 70s. Where was he going to go? What was he going to do? We had absolutely no idea. And that was a guy. He died not on my watch, but he died on someone else's watch. Natural causes. I think he was another heart attack or stroke or something like that. He died in there, and that was it. And I'm going to say this: everyone in there, staff, other inmates, everyone in there loved and respected that guy. Like, he never caused trouble. For all intents and purposes, from what I knew of him, he was an okay guy. Every one of them felt that. They were like, that it's messed up that he died in there, but what was he going to do out on the outside? Like, there were literally no job prospects for him, nothing. So when Red says, when they say life, that's exactly what they take. They're not kidding. It is sad. It's one of the saddest things I've ever been privy to. But yeah, and this is the other thing. I think the Shawshank Redemption covered kind of well when Brooks is holding that I don't know if it was a pair of scissors or just a makeshift knife or sharp object to William Sadler's neck, threatening to kill him. It's because that's all he had. And guess what? Sometimes, even if someone's been down for like 10, 15 years and they can't seem to go anywhere else, they'll just intentionally commit a crime, break the parole, and get shipped right back. It's true. But again, there are people out there and there are organizations out there, second chance organizations that are willing to do what's necessary. I really think it's not really up to government to help. I really think these second chance organizations need to get a little more press. They need to get the word out there to let those re-entering society know, hey, we're here. We have spots open, and we know you have a lot to prove. We're gonna go ahead and take you in. We're gonna get you everything that you need. It's gonna be rough for a while. We're not gonna lie, but it's gonna be better than that. I think a lot of those that message needs to get out there. I think that kind of not outreach but in reach needs to go in there. It was one of the reasons I was with the Troth. That's one of the things that they did. It's just I know there was no way in hell I was going to be able to make it past all the stuff that they had in line, from all the hoops for me to jump through. There was no way I was going to make it. I'm sorry. I think way too freely. I'm way too reasonable in some respects. I have serious differences of opinion with them that there was no way I was going to be able to do that for them. And that's kind of sad because that's an area that I was interested in. So once you have stuff like that, it becomes a dude that it made it impossible for a guy like me to really do much of anything through them. Doesn't make it impossible for me to do anything else. It's just the only thing right now is me chasing money to pay bills. So that and some of the other projects that I've recently found myself in the middle of. But yeah, institutionalized people, I think they have nothing to lose. I think some of them, yeah, would probably do what Brooks initially proposed, which was maybe I'll rob the store I work in, and maybe they'll send me back because I miss my friends or something like that. And I think there are some people that the best advice I can give anyone who finds themselves in there, and anyone like who wants to go work in that sector, wants to if you really want to make a difference, my advice would be to advise those you have to supervise, have a plan. You may not be getting out for another 20 years, but have a plan for the day you get out. Keep in mind your connections to the outside world are going to be invaluable. Don't squander them. Get those updates and be ready to adjust that plan as you go. And then when you get out, start on that plan as soon as possible. Because look at Joe Guerrero. Joe Guerrero actually has a video that he did on the plan that he had and the adjustments he's had to make and what he's doing now. And let me tell you something, in just 5 to 7 years of being out, that dude has turned his life in a complete 180. And it's a sight to behold. I got to say congratulations to like Joe Guerrero, Christina Randall, Jessica Kent, Josh from Lockdown 23-1. Banky, that was another channel I forgot to add. That was one of Joe Guerrero's guys. Joe got him started in YouTube. Dave from Dave's World also. Those guys have turned their lives completely around, and they have done amazing things. And Joe's done some amazing stuff for other people. Unfortunately, some of those other people did not take it and run with it like Dave and Banky did. But have a plan. Stick to it like glue. Don't let anything come between you and that plan. And once you're out, start making it happen. Whatever you got to do, that within reason, of course, legit, have that plan and make it happen. And you're gonna see you will see people just turn their fucking shit around. It's pretty amazing. But it's not up to government, it's up to us. We have to be the ones that give that advice. We have to be the ones that say, okay, I know that your hand is pretty shit, but you're gonna have to play it. That's just how it is. And you're not gonna reach everyone. Some people are just gonna turn around and go right back in. But the ones that really do want to be out, they want to be done with it, they'll follow through. Believe that. I've seen it. Very little evidence of it happening, but the evidence is there.
So, with that in mind, we are about 15 minutes over, but it's your show. You can be as long as you want. Uh, I just want to leave us on a funny note. Leave us with a happy thing. I want to tell the story, as I've said a couple of times, about how I am a school shooter. Because everything about me implies violence, Wolfgar. I'm an angry person. So
Practically unhinged. That's why I have you on the show.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about my ability to make bad decisions. I was in remedial math, and I was talking to some friends. We're bullshitting. We should be working, but who the fuck gives a shit, man? No. And I start quoting Fight Club. And Fight Club is very memeable. Fight Club has some awesome quotes.
Oh, so quotable, yeah.
What am I quoting? I'm quoting Ed Norton talking to his boss about having a high-powered rifle and going from cubicle to cubicle, unloading round into unsuspecting workers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's see. Now let's take our itinerary here. Black trench coat, anti-authoritarian, antisocial behavior, a week after Columbine. We gotta wait for Wolfgar to come back.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so let me go over that again because
go ahead.
Again,
black trench coat, check.
Yep. Antisocial and anti-authoritarian leanings, right? Talking about shooting people a week after Columbine.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my remedial professors hears this and goes, "Hey Joe, maybe you shouldn't say that." I'm like, "Okay." Right. Another one overheard it, didn't tell me. Went to her bosses and went, "That Joe, that cripple kid, he was talking about shooting people, and I'm concerned." Right. So later in the day, I'm in class. I'm just I get called to the principal's office. I'm like, "What the fuck's this?" Okay, I'll go to the principal's office. There's the cop. There's the principal, and they're like, "Mr. McKeever, we've received a report of your intentions, your discussions. We're considering it a serious threat. We're removing you from school." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Do I get to come back tomorrow?" And they're like, "No, you're out." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Are you armed?" I'm like, "Technically, right?" And they all look at me like eyeballs. They're like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Well, I have a pocket knife." Right? And they're like, would you please take it out? So the thing is that not only did I have a very, 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 very fucking tiny penknife, clearly a tool, right, on my keychain. We're talking a sliver. You couldn't cut nobody with it.
Yeah.
Right? But that day, not shitting you, that day I had located a rusted knife on the school grounds. I found somebody's pocket knife all beat up and broken, and I had it in my pocket. So I'm reaching in my pocket. The cop grabs his gun. I'm like, you can relax, sir." I take out this tiny penknife. I take out this rusted hunk of metal. They confiscate them. I've lost Wolfgar again. He's on the loose, everybody.
So I want to say, if I had to guess, from what you're talking about here, I'm going to say it's probably about maybe, I don't know, let's see, what about maybe that size?
Smaller.
Smaller than this.
Smaller than that.
And I even took out the wrong thing. That's a nail file and nail cleaner.
No, even smaller.
So it's probably.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is I've got a collection of these guys. This is actually a slightly larger version of another Swiss Army knife that I have.
But it wasn't even a Swiss Army knife. It was just that one blade.
A little single blade pocket knife.
Yeah, so tiny. So they confiscate my weapons, and they take me to the cop car. And I'm like, "Look, man, I can't get in the car." They're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm a cripple. I can't get in your car the way you want." It's like, well, how are you gonna? We need to escort you. I'm like, look, do you mind if I go in head first? And they're like, okay. So I climb into the back of the car, roll over on my back, and I'm basically propping my head up like I'm a fucking king as they're driving me by. And they do the perp drive. They drive through the loop. Everybody's looking at the cop car. Everybody's seeing me. And there are people that's like, oh, we knew. We knew that guy was going to get taken away by the cops one day. They take me to my folks' house. They want to see the gun. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they knock on the door, they open, my parents are there. My parents are like, what's this? Right? They explain. And my parents are watching Gandhi with Ben Kingsley.
I'm familiar with it. Like I don't know what it is, but I used to love that movie when I was just like a little kid. I used to love that movie. I don't know why.
So the cop has me escort him to my bedroom. And he says, oh, I want to search your room. It's like, okay, fine. So I open my bedroom, which, because my father had this way of consistently, like, selling my furniture to pay rent, right? It's a fucking disaster. I'm like, sir, if you can find a gun in all this, I will be impressed, because I don't own one. And the cop looks at my room. He looks at my parents. He's like, you can see the gears start to go in his head. He's like, oh dear. So the cop leaves, right? And my mom gets on the phone. And by next Monday, I was back in school to get my finals.
Yeah.
Because my mom had a very strong talking to the people about, your grievous overreaction has consequences that end in media and start in lawsuit.
Oh, jeez. Stein says, Joe, be like Dominic Mysterio. Both have done hard time and have come out changed.
I mean,
come on, look. Well, let me tell you that. Okay, so coming from a former CEO's perspective, this is why I just kind of looked at that part of the storyline and went, oh, come on. Dominic Mysterio. Dude, okay, I understand that wrestling goes out into the ridiculous and the outlandish. I get that. It's been that way since I was a kid. Like Marlena being pregnant with Val Venus's kid, and then one fall suddenly had her miscarry. I saw that coming. This whole thing with Dominic Mysterio being like such a hard guy for doing an overnight is so ridiculous. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And Corey Graves just buying into it. He is just selling the shit out of this thing. And I'm like, dude, come on. Anyone with half of their sense, like you could be like potato level and just half of that sense can see through that. That's dumb. Stop. By the way, that Family Feud thing, I will say this, it's far better if they just, in my opinion, if they just stuck with deadbeat dad, because there's just a small grain of truth to that, and you blow that out of proportion. Okay, that I'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can buy into this Family Feud thing now. I totally understand.
Oh,
but on the other hand, that whole I've done hard time, dude, you did an overnight, just shut up.
Bro,
and then they're bringing him in a police van for WrestleMania. I was like, oh, fuck off. Fuck all the way off. Stop.
Okay, so two things. One, Party at Ground Zero is like, I'm more of a God's a Crazy Guy, which is totally an awesome movie. But Fox, man, I ain't earned a teardrop yet. Those things have meanings. I can't just give myself a teardrop. I'll get chipped in the yard.
It's true. It's true that it does have meaning. It's that's I think one, if you've got one, you've actually killed someone. And there's other stuff too. Like you don't I forget what the meaning behind it is, but you don't get a shamrock tattoo without there being serious consequences. I
mean, yes, obviously the Yakuza and the Tong tattoos are beautiful, but I love Russian tattoos. Russian tattoos are fucking hardcore.
Yeah, as I understand it, if you get the cherry blossom tattoo, that means you're not to be fucked with, like at all. Because that goes back to samurai days where the cherry blossom was symbolic to them because the cherry blossom is a very short life. I know because I live where there are cherry blossoms. They are beautiful. I've taken pictures of them. But yeah, they don't last very long. And that goes to their Bushido code, which is you're basically living on borrowed time, so you might as well make the best of it.
Son of a
This
bitch.
better not be a goddamn suspected spam. We're answering it. Fuck these people. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, we're going to put you on speaker. Hello? Hello?
That's the AI getting your
They
voice.
hung up. Let's fuck them. Okay. So,
My personal favorite is still
now
getting
you're all
called by
imagining Joe with saggy pants, a do-rag, and a teardrop tattoo. Jesus Christ. The male
Hey.
tramp stamp.
Hey, you don't know about the Cripple Mafia.
Oh, man.
We broken, but we ain't broke.
Yeah, that's true. We're broken, but we ain't broke.
But you know, I always love it when I get called by telemarketers, and they're like, "Can we help you with your car insurance?" It's like, "Sure." When I get a car, you can talk to me about that. And they're like, "Oh," but they keep calling.
I
keep
still
calling.
I still remember when they were doing this back in the mid to late
Shit.
The only thing I had was I had a
God damn it.
I'm not kidding you. I had a Mongoose XR200, which was a mountain bike. I actually kept it in my living room because, hey, no one else is living with me, so I'm going to keep it right there.
Fox
And-
is shit posting.
And anyway, I kept giving them that, and some of them were like, that's a bicycle. I'm like, yeah, I know. They're like, well, okay, do you have any other vehicles? I was like, I got a pair of rollerblades hanging up. Do you want to insure those, or you want to extend the warranty on those? They're like, we mean motorized transport, sir. I was like, you guys have called time and again. You tell me. You're so sure my warranty's about to expire. What kind of motorized transport do I have? And they'd hang up. And then I just got to the point where I was going to make them uncomfortable for calling me. But anyway, Joe was a Crip before he was a gangster.
Also, Fox, I believe the term is OG.
Yeah. OG. So anyway, yeah, there are inmate organizations. The only gang, and that's in air quotes there, the only gang that's allowed and sanctioned by the state where I used to work was Muslim Brotherhood, and an officer led that too. And let me tell you something, I'm going to say this, like you hear, like when you watch these documentaries about a lot of these places that have the inmates just kind of self-segregate, I didn't see a lot of that. I did see a lot of intermingling, like a lot. And you're talking guys that had like what some may consider Nazi tattoos, mingling with just about everybody else.
Well,
and nobody had a problem with each other. If two guys had a beef, it was usually over the TV in the TV room. I'm serious.
Well, it's like, media previously over reports on rape, all the prison rape, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually listen to former guards and administrators, they're like, no, man, 90% of the stuff that goes down in there is consensual. They just horny and lonely.
It's true, but there's a reason, like, they're not allowed to consent because they are basically in the custody of the state. So we are being entrusted with them. That's why I said whenever staff get involved with an inmate, that it doesn't.
Right,
okay.
but I was talking inmate to inmate.
With the example that I cited,
yeah.
Even if hypothetically we were to just get it on that night and we went absolutely buck wild for however long I was there. Oh yeah, I'd be doing time myself for rape.
Well, yeah, but I was talking about inmate to inmate.
Yeah, that's also true, but they can't, like, that still gets added to those statistics.
But
Patty said I should make a child prison scenario.
Yeah,
that would actually be really interesting. I would be interested in seeing that.
I think that's going to actually be kinky and dirty.
That probably would, yeah, and it would fit. Might not fit in this next zine, but maybe one afterwards. True. Female prison officers getting kinky with inmates getting themselves pregnant. Yep. that's not unheard of. Like, it didn't happen while I was working, thank goodness, but it's a thing. It happens. As a matter of fact, I know of there was one lady I was training, and she like, I noticed she was kind of shaking down this one guy kind of regularly, and I told her, you might want to watch that. Like,
Well,
something could be inferred from that, and you don't want that. In my opinion, you're paying a little too much attention to him. And here's the thing, and I told every cadet this, every cadet I've ever trained. As long as you're doing your job, as long as I'm looking down that door and it looks to me like you are doing your job, I'll back you. But if I think you're not doing your job, I don't want to have to report it.
well,
I'm not that kind of guy, but if you put me in that position, I'm going to have to. Let's get that understanding from day one.
well,
And they all acknowledged, yeah, we got that understanding. That one I warned, and there was some suspicion that maybe there was something going on. She did get called into the investigator's office. She basically told the investigator and the warden, go fuck themselves, and she was escorted off the compound. And that guy ended up under investigation as well. And I guarantee you, he rolled over on her. He didn't stay loyal. They're not ride or die. I'm telling you that right now. Secrets of the Slaver Stockade could be expanded. There are other scenarios where D&D players might escape a prison. Yeah. I mean that took place in Dragonlance like 2 or 3 times.
I mean, Bethesda made a career out of it. Just play some Elder Scrolls. But
yep,
with that in mind,
scenario.
But with that in mind, Wolfgar, it's about the half. And I mean,
Yep.
It's your show. You do what you want, but you're always telling me, Joe, we gotta tighten up. So
yeah, we do. And I have to run and get some things, do some things, and also have to get this posted to the other platforms before we get snatched off.
Oh, I mean, do you think we've said enough of the bad words?
I think we've said all the bad words.
All the bad. Well, we haven't said the bad word, but that's because we're not scum.
But anyway, next episode, I know for sure I do want to cover. Let me just pull it up, because I know I downloaded it and I need to remember where it is. By the way, I'm going to say this. We're going to take it back to tabletop RPGs. I do want to share this because I found, and in my opinion, this is a hell of a deal. Everybody who has been telling me that I need to check out Pathfinder, you got it. I did end up getting this. This is the pocket. They call it the pocket version. This is not going to fit into any goddamn pocket. I mean, look at how thick this sumbitch is.
Yeah.
But I did get first edition.
Sweet.
Right there. And then Captain Graybeard, Grendel13 on Twitter, just real, like he's been like super encouraging about getting into Pathfinder first edition. And he was like, yeah, that print's small, man. You might want to get the hardcover. I was actually looking for one, but I kept running across just overpriced everything. And some of them were so beat up that I was like, dude, what the fuck? I actually ran into this and I was like, yeah, I got it. And I asked the seller, because I'm going to show you this listing right here. There's the core rule book, which is looks to be in pretty decent shape. I mean,
not the worst.
No, it's definitely not the worst. I've seen worse.
I ain't paying $60 full price for it. You can eat all the biggest dick.
Hold on. Okay, so $60. Then there was this. Then there was this. And then there was this. And I was thinking, is he trying to sell like each one for 60, or is this the whole lot? So I asked him, and he said it was that for the whole lot. And I was like, so
all right, that's worth $60.
That is, yeah, that was totally worth it. And the thing was, Graybeard was telling me this core was the only one I really needed. He's like, but this advanced player's guide was really good to have as well. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll definitely take those, but I'm also getting Ultimate Combat and Ultimate Magic as
It,
well.
well, real quick. First of all, next show will be week after next, so 2 weeks from now, guys, as is the
Yep.
standard.
Yep.
But Party at Grand Zero, it's actually kind of funny. That's a funny thing. Yeah, we colloquially refer to dungeons as dungeons, but we actually shouldn't call them dungeons. Technically, it's a labyrinth. When you go underground and you're futzing around in a cavernous experience, fighting monsters, it's a labyrinth. Dungeons are only if they are built locations for confinement.
And that was one thing I wanted to point out. Labyrinth, I don't really get down with that because labyrinth implies a maze.
This is true.
But like if I mean, even like some of the stuff that I'm kind of designing right now,
I mean,
I'm working on a schematic for an orbital platform at the moment, just because. And shit, I'm trying to find that thing and I
but
can't.
do you call it a dungeon or do you call it a platform?
Oh, I'm gonna call it a dungeon. At least the floor mapping,
Right.
because I mean, technically it is. You're maneuvering around a confined space.
Right, but
So
it's not. But it's not for confinement. It's not a floating prison.
Well, I mean, if you go outside of it without protective gear, it's certainly you're gonna rethink that.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't call the International Space Station a dungeon either. Even though, on a mechanical level, for a game purpose, we can call it a dungeon. It's clearly a space station. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not criticizing the usage of words colloquially. Obviously, in our common vernacular, it's a dungeon. I'm saying
yeah.
when you're being particular, it's technically not a dungeon.
Technically not, but it's become kind of a catch-all term, which I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I don't get I really don't get mad at it because it's like, okay, well, it's for me it's easier to say dungeon map.
We got so many more gamer things to be mad at. Oh god,
so many more. Yeah, see, it might be in here. Let's see. In downloads. Shit. I will probably have to look for this because, damn. And I know that this was something. I wonder if it's this. Nope. I have no idea what the fuck this is. Okay. There's so much shit in my downloads right now. I probably moved it, but I'll have to find it again. Anyway, but yeah, we'll be talking about Patty's game, and as soon as I find it, of course, because I got to remember where it is. Patty, I'll be getting in touch with you over that one. We'll talk about that, and Mutants. Mutants is also another one I'd love to talk about because that thing looks sick, and I think it's kind of like a miniature war game in the vein of Gamma World, which I think is cool. Medieval fantasy prisons are called dungeons. That's true, very true. But Patty, at some point, I would actually love to have you on to discuss your games because, quite frankly,
yes.
I think more attention needs to be drawn to them. I know it's on. As a matter of fact, I'll just pull up Big Geek Emporium because I know it's there. Big Geek Emporium, bang. Let's see. Let's have a look. Man, the search is taking forever. There we go. Mutants. So Mutants is definitely one that's a zine style game. I love these little zine style games. And guess what? That one's free. That is free. Go to Big Geek Emporium, download Mutants, and this one. Okay, the boy from Mazetta's. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. So let me go back to my RPG library here. This is the problem with having a digital library, people. Books get lost in this thing. And I probably stuck it in My Chalt? No, not my Chalt folder. Ugh. Maybe my Corthalis folder? Nope. Not in there either. But it's got to be in here somewhere.
Well,
So
while you're
scroll on down. Here we go.
oh, you can't.
Found it.
Cool.
So I will be bringing this up in just a second. And full disclosure, this was an accidental send. Try to schedule for the next show. Okay, cool. It's a skirmish. Okay, so Mutants is a skirmish game that has level up mechanics. So very cool. And Patty has shown off some of his own miniatures, and I'm like, dude, I've got to get the STL files for something like that because I know a guy, and he will actually print those for me. Not looking forward to painting them, but I know I said after this batch I was done, but damn it, you guys give me reasons.
You're never done.
No, I'm never done. No, it's just not going to happen. I know. This is the one I really wanted to share. This is a Chalt adventure using Crimson Dragon Slayer engine, and it's a Big Geek Emporium exclusive. And yeah, not much in the way of art, but I don't think that that's such a bad thing. But there is a map here, including the poop chute, the sewer grate, posture palace. This is so cool. And this is the thing. The Sanger's Institute of Eugenetics, Cerulean Bay, got the main gate there. There's an entire city of San Francisco. It's all parody, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why I left in my heart in San Francisco. It's 40 pages, guys, and it's
Sam claims Cisco.
Sam claims Cisco. There you go. You got nice D12 tables here. Plenty of stat blocks for NPCs, looters, Belinda. Oh, there you go. Rainbow roomies. Got groupies in there. The cotton candy golem thugs.
What a delicious way to die.
Right. And guess what? I just found out that the books I ordered from Barnes & Noble, which are Grimm Fairy Tales and the Irish Fairy Tales and Folklore, just arrived, apparently. So I got to see about that. So, Patty, we will be talking about this, and we'll also be talking about game design. I meant to cover this in the last episode. Unfortunately, we got sidetracked, and I just completely forgot. And it may not be perfect, but it's there. So, I mean, that's something. You can always go back and make improvements where you need to. So I'm not mad at it. I think it's actually kind of cool. And here's the thing: I put it on my tablet and actually read through it, and I was like, "This, yes, I could use something like this. It might need some tweaking, but I could run this. I'm not going to run it for my not going to run it for my niece, but I will definitely run it for somebody at some point. It's fine."
But some other last minute ads for some friends of ours. Happy birthday to the Red Room, who had their birthday while we were in our downtime. And specifically to Miguel, who has celebrated another year on this consignment of suffering we call Earth.
You know what I say to that? I say never lament getting older, because it's a privilege afforded to very few.
Exactly.
And on top of that, it's a privilege afforded to very few who want to do it well.
But also for people who are interested, Wretched Bastards 2nd edition is out.
Yep.
Which includes the Wretched Bastards adventure.
The 7 Bastards.
Yeah, the 7 Bastards in the book. It looks beautiful. It has all the titties you need.
On top of that, it's actually kind of an adventure in itself, because this one actually uses the rules from the Wretched RPG. Yeah. So and this was something I proposed it a while back, well before the OGL scandal. I was like, they were coming out with Wretched Bastards, Wretched Country, Wretched Epoch, Wretched Exploitation, Wretched Space, Wretched New Flesh, so on and so forth. I was like, why not just make a Wretched core rules and then build off of that? Yep. And at the time, it was like one of those things where it was like, well, we're already kind of deep into this. I was like, fair, I understand. They didn't want to have to go back and rewrite all that. But Miss Tezos, okay. Tezos. That's the pronunciation. Thank you.
I mean, that's what I'm doing. Is I'm having to rewrite some stuff that I was preparing because of the shift in systems, because I want to be compliant with the newest set of stuff. But with that in mind, there are several new Wretched verses. If you guys aren't sure about the Wretched verse, or you need a little taste of wretchedness to get you going, check out the Wretched verses. They're $1. They're little primers, little pamphlets for what is Wretch.
Digital only, but
yeah.
hey, if you got a tablet or a phone, you can run these things.
The most recent one is called Press the Flesh, which sounds interesting.
It does.
Patty's
pointing this out. All the money from the boy from Miss Tejas,
also good.
Tejas, goes to Gays Against Groomers, which that's an organization that I follow, and I think what they're at what GAG is asking for is not unreasonable. I do believe that. Yeah, gag. But yeah, these, and the thing is, everything about Chult is a work of satire, parody, and if you claim that you don't like that, then stop playing GTA. Look, because that's exactly what that is.
Look, Chult is to D&D as paranoia is to science fiction.
Yep.
That's the deal.
And there is one more thing I wanted to cover just briefly, because this is why I'm like, I don't care if it goes to 3 hours, it goes to 3 hours. It's fine. I was prepared for that mentally, so we're good. That's why I'm not really getting too insistent right now. This alignment system thing that's just recently popped up. By the way, guys, I have a Substack now. I will be including that. I'm going to update my link tree here pretty soon. This thing with alignment that's popped up. Anyone arguing against alignment, my first question to them is, how did what's your take on the Red Room? And if you're going to give me a bunch of their edgelords and blah, 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 and I'm glad they were banned off Drive Thru RPG, I'm immediately going to tell you, shut up, your opinion's invalid. Because they actually came up with a game, a fantasy game, and it's right here in my collection. This entered the fray first. This guy right here, it's not very big, rules light as hell. It's D&D with the serial numbers filed off, and it does away with the alignment system. And if you worked against this, I don't give a shit what you have to say about the alignment system. Fuck you.
It's extra funny. The assholes who are saying you don't need alignment have been so offensive that Miguel today or late last night put out a blog post about including virtues in the Red Room. So if you want to play good guys in the Wretched verse, you now have the moral rectitude to do so, and it's great because it's the same system as for Vices, right? Yep. Here's the thing. It goes in it the right way. Miguel got it in one. It's not that your vice or that your virtue makes you stronger, right? Your virtue gives you another bane. Virtue is hard.
Yeah.
Virtue is not easy.
And look, here are my entire thoughts, just to keep you from having to go and read it for yourself. Oh God,
Cal's got it right. Soon they want to remove combat too.
Yep.
We're gonna resolve everything with interpretive dance and hugs.
Fuck off. So here's what I wrote, and this is it. This is the whole thing right here. I still got to work on the Substack. I only made it like maybe a couple days ago, but it's the post titled "Of Good and Evil," and it's the question of alignment in D&D and Pathfinder. So the question of alignment in games like D&D and Pathfinder is popping up and making the rounds again. It's not the first time it's happened. And as always, the radical tourists coming into the hobby want to change fundamental aspects of established games and thereby destroy them. So for those who aren't familiar...
You mean like that tourist that's been playing for 43 years?
Yeah.
That tourist?
43 seconds.
Yeah.
And for those that aren't familiar, D&D has had 9 alignments from which players could choose for their respective characters. They were as follows: lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, chaotic evil. Now, for a complete breakdown of these alignments and what they mean, you can read about them here. I do have that section hyperlinked. The radical tourists and professional victims have eschewed the alignment system because they are moral relativists, constantly playing a game of whataboutism without regard to what anyone else may think about it. In truth, This was yet another in game balancing mechanics that were introduced because it meant some creatures would be susceptible to certain types of attacks and which ones to which they'd be immune. Fact of the matter is that these self-insertions have become so ridiculous that there are other games that have made representation a priority and have even eschewed the alignment system in favor of, in the case of the Red Room's Wretchedverse, sought to replace it with a system of transgressions as a theme, and the radical tourists and professional victims are little more than frauds, as they've either ignored the very games that give them exactly what they want, or they try with every fiber of their being to cancel them. Throughout our history, sagas, and stories of good people becoming heroes via selfless and brave actions battling against the forces of evil and entropy have taught a lesson that even Galina Kraskova mentioned in her book, A Modern Guide to Heathenry, which sums up what I'm about to say very well, and I quote, "Our capacity for thought allows us to decide cleanly, to turn our lives to our gods, to make choices about how we will live in the world and what kind of person we shall become, what kind of world to create. There is tremendous beauty and profundity in the way we were designed, in the power of our minds to reach out to the gods and experience in some infinitesimal way all that they are. We connect with the mysteries of creation every time we make a decision that aligns us with our gods, and against entropy, despair, and all the empty promises of modernity, monotheism, and Marxism. In some respect, we are called to be co-creators with our gods, not that we have a hand in creating the worlds, but that we can again and again align ourselves with the primordial acts of creation by aligning our minds and hearts and wills with our gods. We participate, by consciously choosing to order our values as polytheists, no small thing." Now, key takeaways from that quote. While I may be coming to you from the perspective of a polytheist, I'm certainly not pressing you into such. The things that I've personally taken away from the text, is that it is up to us, as has been told in fables, folklore, sagas, and stories of Conan the Barbarian, Elric of Melniboné, and so on, is that these are stories of people who took that very idea upon themselves. Gygax and Arneson created a hobby based on those ideals, which was derived from wargaming, which came about when military families gave dioramas in 10 miniatures to their children and let them play with them. Gygax and Arneson made it possible for all of us to take that hobby and press it into fantasy worlds where heroes rise up against dark forces bent on destruction and or domination. This very theme is what gives games conflict and resolution alongside elements such as man versus nature, and man versus himself. Using it as a mechanic to balance the game is one thing, but even then, the lines between black and white, good and evil, had gray areas in the neutral alignments. When it comes to the hobby of tabletop role-playing games themselves, if you ever want to know where your conflict is coming from, look no further than the game master, referee, or judge, pick your term. The GM will embody and present the conflict for the characters to face and interact with in order to grow as characters through experience points. The professional victim, Puritans, seek only not sanitization, because that's been attempted to no avail, but sterilization. The motive for these actions is simple. If there are no heroes and heroines to which to aspire, no one is motivated to strive for better, and that's because they themselves have never aspired to strive to be better than what they are now. Burning out heroes and heroines is their business. Again, occulting your history by revisionism and ensuring that no one will ever have those inspirational elements unless all roads lead to them and their virtual signaling. These people have had a long-standing feud with the concepts of good and evil, wanting to portray honest, dyed-in-the-wool villains as misunderstood and fixable when it's been clear they're anything but. They are called monsters for a reason, peeps. For some, these heroes take the form of Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Batman, Iron Man, the X-Men, and etc. For others, it's Sigurd battling Fafnir the Dragon, Odin meeting his doom at the hands of Fenrir, only to be avenged by his son Vidar, Balor being defeated by Luke. The examples are endless and spread across cultures. While I'm still a proponent of your table, your rules, this is still a point where I think such a mechanical change is unwarranted. If the alignment grid is not something you wish to explore, then I suggest simply ignoring it for your table, but be mature and sane enough to allow others to enjoy it. Alternately, the professional victim crowd could show just a little courage themselves and perhaps try the Wretchedverse at their tables instead, because yet another motive I suspect may be at hand is the desire to have an excuse to play such anti-heroes.
This is from Wolfgar's own comments on the matter, but I think it's more accurately his manifesto. This is the alignment manifesto, and I concur. Where my thing comes in is I'm open to the idea that we can reinterpret monsters, when you're talking mortals, if you want to say, hey man, orcs aren't evil, orcs just have a shit culture, I'll go with it. I'm okay. I'm down. I love Worf. Okay? But at the same time, if you start saying, as Watsy has, that demons and devils can be other than evil because people, it's like, no, those are beings which represent cosmic constants. They are the manifestations of beliefs held by mortals. We created them after a fashion. Going all the way back to ancient Rome and the genus loci, the idea that a physical location has a living spirit, right? It's not that Asmodeus is both lawful and evil and represents the evil side of civilization because he chooses it, because he didn't. It's Asmodeus is lawful and evil because he is made of lawful and evil and is the dark side of civilization. He is made of us, not us made of him. This is not complicated. And for people who are interested, you can see more of Raven's manifesto on the Substack there. You got the link out.
And like I said, the Substack is going to be undergoing some changes. I just haven't really had a lot of time to do it. But I did take an opportunity to step out for just a second because I wanted to make sure that they didn't. It's been raining. I don't want them to leave this box out in the rain. So, and there have been times where shipping companies have left boxes out in the rain, and I'm like, "Are you serious? You know it's raining, and you could just practically push these doors open, and you left it sitting in the rain."
I get that all the time.
It's like, okay, thankfully it's in a plastic bag, but if it leaked, you're in trouble. But anyway, I wanted to unbox these like right here, right now.
Right here, right now, right here, right now.
It looks like the bubble packaging that they installed also just deflated. So let's see what we got here.
So you got some empty plastic.
Oh, these things are gorgeous. I'm definitely kind of happy I picked these up. And the reason I picked these up, especially after the alignment thing came up, was because, quite frankly, I want to have print editions of these. That way they cannot be erased.
No, now I am sad face again.
I mean,
nice.
Yeah.
But
not a big book either. But these tales that the Brothers Grimm collected are dark. So, and then there's this one. Oh boy, I cannot wait to start digging into these. And they have ribbon bookmarks, y'all. So,
but you have now reminded me that my books are still lost in the ether.
Oh, the night shift books? They still have those?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, come on.
I intermittently get mail from the U.S. Post Service saying we're looking for them. We haven't found them yet.
So, it's like you might want to get on it, sooner rather than later. It's been months.
Yeah, I'd like my stuff, please.
Hell yeah, right there. Big old green book, little red book, and they're kind of differing sizes, but I think that does it, man. I think this. Wow. So yeah, these are. Oh, the illustrations are kind of nice too. I didn't know they were illustrated, but yeah, boy, I am going to enjoy the shit out of these. This is let's see. Wow, interesting. I'm really kind of amped to start digging into these. They got plate illustrations in Grimm's, and of course I don't know where I'm going to put these just yet, but I imagine I could find a place. We're also within the tribe. We're taking a look into the Troth's 2 books, Our Troth Volumes 1 and 2. I don't have Volume 3. I saw what Volume 3 would cost in print, and I went, I'm sure it's worth several hundred pages. I'm like, Wagoner wrote another phone book, and that was one of the jokes I used to say. Is this going to be you writing another phone book?
You ran away screaming.
I didn't run away screaming. It's just like it's a little too rich for my blood, really. And I'm gonna say this: he does a lot of research, but then again, there are some issues, and I think the one that we've come across thus far was that there's a cave painting depicting a figure with an elk horn and an arrow, and I guess Wagner was trying to make it kind of a mystery as to what it was, and we're like, it's pretty obvious what it is. Just kind of roll with that, and you'll be okay. But I'm also wondering if these will fit. They will. They'll fit on my desk couch. Woo! Yeah.
Yay!
So maybe I'll put them right next to my Lovecraft. I don't know yet. I'm going to figure that out later on today. But yeah, I think signing off. Let's see these last couple comments here. How people play RPGs is how people want to live life. Some use brute force, others prefer use rose-colored glasses and positive affirmations. The dissent in RPGs is political, religious, and personal. I tend to agree. Again, I'm all for your table, your rules, but as far as the official books are concerned, leave them alone. Enough fundamental changes have been made. Make sure to impress the point that you can do away with this, you can do away with that, but it may present some mechanical problems you will have to figure out. That's it. It's not that fucking deep, but you got to understand the people that want to do away with and just the books that I have right here. The reason they want to edit these books, they want to tone this down, or they want to make it updated for modern audiences, is because if we go back to that, we will have a desire to strive to better our station in life. They don't want that. They want everybody exactly the same, so that they're under the same level of control. It's just that's the way it is. The confused wish to use RPGs as an abusive tool for social change. The confused wish, no, I don't think they're confused, and I don't think it's a wish. I think they fucked up though, because in an age where it's never been easier to self-publish, in an age where you can still reach your audience, those who aren't lazy, you can still make your own. And guess what? They're up against people who have been making their own for fucking decades, at least half a century now. So, no, it's not confused, but they're in the wrong place. And I think it's up to us to create a quagmire for them, frustrate every attempt. And I do mean frustrate. If they want to make their own, look, there are games out there. I just learned of one today where you're meal planning. A solo RPG where you're meal planning. For guys like me and Dave Dana, that's just called real life. It is what it is. Just fucking chill on that. But for some, hey, who knows? Who knows? For some, that might turn into a real life skill. You never know. So it's as much as I would look at it and go, what? It may not be such a bad thing. It's not for me, because I already do it all the time, so fuck it. But if it's for you, go ahead. Be my guest. I'm perfectly happy with you playing it. Makes us weaker and easier to control, so we are easier to control. That's true. By trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. I say confused because they made the wrong assumption about gaming.
Well, you know what the truly terrible part is?
I want to agree with this so much. I do, but it's like I don't think they knew what they were getting themselves into. I think they thought, oh, if we just infiltrate and take over these major companies, no one will ever question us. And I'm like, but really? I don't think you understand where you're stepping into.
Well, you know what the truly terrible part is? The truly terrible part is that when you actually think about it, right? We're going to step way back. We're going to fridge logic for a minute. They are right about one thing. And it's the one thing they also use most incorrectly. Games are, theoretically, a tool for social change. But not in a one-to-one political spectra where we'll force you to acclimate to a belief system. It's a tool for change in that it can expose you to different perspectives by parable, by metaphor. I don't go and fight the slave masters in the slave pit because I believe slavery exists and I want there to be slavery. I go fight the slavers in the slave pit because I think slavery is fucking awful and I don't want it to exist. Right?
And also, like, you can explore themes that way. You can. Um, for example, I mean, even just mentioning the Dragonlance novels, which I've been reading, and I'm on the last book of the Legends trilogy, and there have been just so far between Chronicles and Legends, there have been prison breaks that our heroes have had to escape from. There have been slave pits from which our heroes have had to escape. There has been murder. There has been, death. There's been all kinds of just very heavy things happening. And I've noticed the trend. These are all the things that these kind of radical tourists want to get rid of. And it's like, you can't, because your story has no gravitas. It has no conflict. It has no resolution. I see where it's going. You don't want conflict because you don't want anyone to aspire to be greater than what they are. You want them to be just as shitty as you. And the answer to that is no. Fuck no. Fuck no on toast. Miss me with that shit. I'm quoting Grim Jim there, and that's a stance on his game. Actual fucking monsters I truly admire. Again, and you know what? There are no bounds to social crusaders and book burners. That is very true. And I say, when you're looking for book burners, look for them on both sides. They exist.
I mean,
on both sides.
a matter of point. I will not say what the subject of the posts were because they were vile and I don't want to get into it. But because of the leftist extremists and all their bullshit, rightist extremists, the truly unpleasant people, have started to act as though they got a free license. I've started to see some things stated, some positions held that are so fundamentally awful to me that I'm shocked anyone would dare say them. All right. I'll give you one small example, okay? Just one, and then I'm not gonna like tell you where the post was or have you go look at it. Somebody advocating that you should not seek significant others of a different race because why wouldn't you want a blonde-haired, blue-eyed daughter and wife?
Mm.
And it's like, wow, that's some putting on the Reich there.
Yeah, and honestly, like, my Twitter is like blowing up right now over a discussion that I would probably rather not be part of at this moment.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's true. But as a matter of fact, I'm just going to scroll up and ignore all of that.
We've had enough internet today. We're already done.
Yeah, I've had way too much. Just as it is. But in the context of what we're talking about, there's one more story. It's still going. I can't believe it's still going. I'm probably gonna have to mute that conversation just to give myself a little bit of peace. And the thing is, I think there are some good points on either side, and I think they're being missed. And I want to barge in, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get drowned out, so I'm not going to make that. But anyway, this is a good one. Every story of a hero starts with a villain. Heroes are only as good as their villains. That's fact. When you have a world crushing or world dominating force,
well,
you kind of have, like, I'm going to bring this example up, and it's a bad example. Chronicles of Riddick. Riddick just wants to be left the fuck alone. He's dodging mercenaries or mercenaries who are trying to bring him in, like these intergalactic bounty hunters. He's trying to dodge them. He just wants to be left alone. He dropped Jack and Imam off on Helium Prime and left, and that was it. He just wants to be left the fuck alone. Leave the guy alone. Let him survive on whatever hostile environment he chose. Then he gets sucked back over to Helium Prime.
I mean,
by the bounty that Imam put on him, and then he ends up having to battle these necromongers, which, in my opinion, I have to agree with the Australian guy who made the video about them being too stupid to exist. Um, it's just a like these, in my opinion, they were a good villain, but executed poorly, and it really kind of showed that side of Riddick where he really did have enough good guy in him, but just enough bad guy to actually take that throne.
Well, here's the thing. Party at Ground Zero says every hero, sort of every story about a hero is a villain. True,
Mhm.
sure, we can go
Yep.
with that. And you said that a good hero is only as good as their villain. Also true. We can take that. But
Yep.
the extremists love that phrase. The villain is the hero of his own story. No, an antagonist is the hero of his own story. A
Mhm.
villain is a villain.
Yep.
A villain is never a hero in any context because
Nope.
a villain doesn't care about other people. A villain fundamentally cares about getting his and getting out.
Someone, I can't remember exactly who, posted to I think it was Greg Lambert from Chronicles of Iris posted, it tagged me in the post, which was pick 4 of your greatest villains, and then tag 8 others to do as well. And one of the villains I picked was none other than this guy, whom I'll pull up just real quick, because I think, in my opinion, despite the design flaws, I think he is still one of the greatest comic book villains to ever exist. I think he was highly underrated. I really want them to bring him back because he was, in my opinion, he was terrifyingly awesome. Again, ignore the design. Uh,
The,
the helmet I thought was a little much. I really do like the armor, but where I go with this is there is a card, and I'm going to look up the exact wording of the back of the Strife card. See, I think it's the Hunter's Strike File card. And I'm going to read off the back of it if I can find it, because it was so good that I found the card. Now I just need to find the image where there's a back to it. I think this is it. Shit. Well, they got part of it. I need the back of that card though, because this is like, when I read what is going on with this guy, I like, it's chilling. It's truly, truly chilling. And just like, will this one give it to me? Let's see. Visit site, maybe. I looked everywhere, couldn't find it. Well, no shit. That's a surprise. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Nope, it's not that one. There was Mutant Liberation Force, which I don't think was the one. Jeez. Yeah, I'm just getting a bunch of Nerf guns. What the fuck? Let's see. Strife Strike File. That was it. It was Strife Strike File. I'll just. Okay, so we'll kind of refine this search a little bit. Maybe I'll find it. Oh God, I can't. I used to be able to find this one pretty easily. Here we go. Okay. Ah, shit, lost it. Okay. Oh, son of a bitch. There it is. Visit site. Fuck off. Here we go. Back of the card. Okay. Here's the text of that card. And this comes with X-Force number 18. I remember this one vividly. It's one of my favorites. But it says this, and I'm going to read this off. As blurry as this is, I can still read it. Okay. So it says this: the final move, White King against Black King. Yet here, nothing but gray reigns supreme. Shades of gray, of uncertainty, insecurity, confusion, anger, love, and hate. Shades of me, shades of you, shades of them. Let the final moves be made. Let time determine the righteousness of my path. I did it for only 2 reasons. I did it because I hate you all, and I did it ultimately because I hate myself. Tomorrow I'll know if I was right or wrong.
My only problem with Strife as a comics fan was he came out at a time, and you already touched on this when you said he was underutilized, where he was another in a long line of morally ambiguous villains with a strange motivation from an unknown perspective who are going to do bad things sometime, somewhere, in some future for some hitherto unknown purpose. And it's like, no, I would like at least some villains who are just disgusting, just disreputable.
No,
Just give me some
Strife.
bad guys who are bad guys.
No, Strife was a clone of Cable without the techno-organic virus.
Right.
He was overpowered and he knew it. And the whole reason he became as evil as he was because he was bored.
Right. No, I get that, but I'm saying that there are other antagonists from Marvel at that time who had very similar modus operandi, and it was very exhausting after a while for every villain to want to be Strife or Strife-like, or for
Yeah,
Strife to be like them.
Strife was the model, but where I think it peaked, and I have to give it. I really wish Liefeld were writing this, but I can't give him credit for it. It just kind of came from his creation, and oh, man, good grief, this was heavy shit for a teenage kid to be reading, because X-Force 18. This is the climax of the Executioner's song, and where it went was, Cable was living on his own orbital station. Again, he's out of the game. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He realizes some of the damages that he's caused and some of the stuff that he's kind of brought about. And he's like, I can't be part of that. Strife, on the other hand, doesn't give a fuck. Strife, knows who he looks like. And of course, presents himself as Cable, nearly completely murders Xavier, nearly successfully assassinated him. And now he's got Scott and Jean on the moon, held captive. So there's Cable's parents right there. He's got mom and dad. You can't do, you got to do something. So he literally drags him back into the fight. And these two are slugging it out, beating the piss out of each other. Cable's got a bomb rigged up, and he's managed to, as fucked up as he got in that fight, he manages to get Strife over that bomb, and he is screaming at Scott to blow it, and Scott is watching. And,
I mean,
and this is how I'm taking it now. He's watching. This is his son. This is his flesh and blood. This is, family, and he can't bring himself to push the button because that's what he realizes. He may have been estranged from him. It may have been, that he sent him to the future because of that virus. He did it to protect him, and now he's faced with the prospect of having to destroy him. And it's like a parent watching all the worst parts of their child do battle with all the best parts of their child, and something has to give, and all the best parts are saying, I'm the one that has to give. That's the only way to take this down. You got to nuke it from orbit. That's the only way to be sure. And Scott can't do it until finally he does. And you see this bomb blow. It creates this huge vortex, and you just see them in this like hockey style slugging it out in this vortex on the way down. And I'm like, only years later did I really kind of get the gravity of that. And I was like, Jesus, that's a really, really, hard thing to lay on a someone barely into their teens. That is crazy. And it's one of the reasons I thought Strife was such an effective villain, was that there was just no length he wouldn't go to. And on top of that, when you hear the back text of that card, you start to understand what we're kind of up against.
Well, it also makes for an interesting case for why you shouldn't bring back really good characters whose stories are done and why you should leave them where they are. Because then when you look at some more recent Cable comics, like they have Cable starting a micronation where he basically rules as an enlightened mutant god king, right? And it's like, oh, so you mean Strife was right.
So you got another Genosha going, Cable, thanks.
No. That's the model now. They did Necrosha, where they killed Genosha, right? So then they made, I think it was called Haven, and then the Avengers blew up Haven because the government didn't like mutants having a nation state. So then while Cable was making his own Banana Republic that failed, they decided to make a nation on Krakoa, and now the X Men are dead and have been replaced by plant clones. Because anytime you're killed on Krakoa, Krakoa brings you back, right? And every time it brings you back stronger. So somebody, in their infinite wisdom, decided that the person we should let on this island to manage our mutant eugenics program is fucking Apocalypse. Our heroes, ladies and gentlemen, who might I add, are holding to ransom the cure for cancer, the cure for AIDS, and the cure for aging, because why not be international drug dealers to the states and control who gets access to vital fucking medicine to protect mutants from humans because we fear and hate them. That's what the
Yeah.
X-Men's about, right?
Yep, apparently. At least according to that group of people, which I'm like, okay,
Those people who are making your comic books now.
yep,
And now,
entirely.
and they want to take away your role-playing games too.
Yep. And here's the thing: with movies, there was not much we could do about it. We just had to either accept them or ignore them. We chose to ignore them. With comics, there wasn't really much we could do. It was either accept, ignore, or start crowdfunding them again. There we go. Not many of them, but now we're starting to crowdfund them. We see them with Ethan Van Sciver, Eric July, those guys, those Comicsgate people. Oh goodness. Oh. And now we're seeing RPGs. We've been seeing it for a little while now, ever since the lockdowns. We're seeing just I dare say we're seeing the decimation of the major companies, and I'm okay with that, because eventually it goes back to, can we just turn this thing back into a niche hobby and just leave it at that? I think it would be much better like that. The people who are demanding all these changes are not the ones buying the games. The ones who are buying the games aren't reading the books, and then they're just kind of making it up as they go. It's like, why even have the book?
I mean, that's what Rob Necronomicon said. He did a video on YouTube called TTRPGs Going Back Underground Where They Should Be. Right?
Mm.
So we're destined, for good or ill, to go back to our essentially punk rock, heavy metal, your mom doesn't like your hobby roots, which is frankly where we always wanted to be and we never left.
Exactly. And you know what? There was another post I reacted to. Wrote a post on my not on my Substack, but I did write a Twitter thread about it. And it's on the Thread Reader app, but it was where this one guy claimed that Nephilim, a game, again, I've never heard of it, but apparently it was done by Chaosium back in the 90s. And they threw all the occult stuff they could into it and into this weird mishmash, and took many creative liberties with it. And it was an adaptation into English of a French game. And this guy went on this. I read the blog in its entirety, and he went on this this tirade, which was kind of nonsensical. Basically, it was the equivalent of trying to decode Q posts. And I just looked at it, and there were so many similarities with it. I was like, you know what, bud? Yeah, I think this is where I get off. I'm just going to go ahead and get off this train right now. Thank you very much. It's been real. It's been fun. Hasn't really been fun. So I'm gonna get off here, and I pointed out the logical arguments. I attacked his post. I never attacked him. Let's get that out of the way. And unfortunately, he came at me with personal attacks. Very personal attacks. And I'm just sitting there like, well, I'm not talking sense to this guy, obviously. This is the very thing that those who grew up during the panic and subsequent moral panics have had to deal with. We know what we're looking at. We've seen this movie. It ends very poorly. You don't have to worry about it. But that's exactly what it is. It's this poor end to a movie that's just going to go nowhere. And I do like this. Hey, Nephilim dude, drugs are bad, okay? And here we go. I find that on the woke side and the OSR side, there are a lot of crowdfunding. There are lots of crowdfunding RPG projects. That's true. That's why the industry or the community is never going to be taken over by one or the other. Because I'll tell you this much. Look, when I say I have books on by both sides here. I like this game. I like its concept. That's why I bought it. I bought it on concept alone, just like I did with 10 Candles. What I don't like, I'll actually open up to that section right now. We have in the world building section. No, I don't think it's in the world building. I think it's a character creation. Yeah, here we go. So you select tropes for your character, and then character ages. You get into strengths and flaws, and then including characters who are disabled or neurotypical. And then there's this thing on, I don't like this, race, ethnicity, gender, and sexuality. Okay, look, if you're going to be playing a child, we are not exploring those topics. I don't care how adult we are in the room. We're not doing it. You know what? I'm gonna, and this is just based on my. Hey, if we're gonna talk about an opinion based on lived experiences, I can share some lived experiences. In my lived experience, we had kids from all stripes playing with us in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods and on the playground. It didn't matter. Everybody, if one kid saw another kid's Transformer, or, oh, you got that G.I. Joe, dude, that's awesome. Can I play with it? Yeah. Here you go. Hey, we're playing G.I. Joes. If you want to play with this one, you can come over here and play with us. Thundercats, He-Man, did not matter. I didn't care. What you were. If you found it cool, you were, come on in. That sort of thing. I knew kids that when I had Ghostbusters action figures, some white kids just love to play Winston. I want to play with Winston. All right. Hey, some black kids like playing Egon because they like the smart character. Hey, okay, cool. Some wanted to play Peter because he was sarcastic and, ran his mouth. Okay. Stuff like that. That's what mattered. So we didn't go, wait, you don't happen to be non-binary or genderqueer, do you? Because if you ask something like that, you're probably going to get your ass kicked, whether they were or not. That was not something explored. And this book is asking us to place our time frame in a time before cell phones, before the internet, so on and so forth. Okay, but that means I'm taking that concept, those little modern day things you're trying to shove in there, and I'm taking them out. So,
hey, Raven, real quick.
Yeah.
One, I have an image for you that is indicative of our roots in the private, and then we have a little something from Venger in the private for you that I think might be interesting to people.
Let's see. So, oh, I love that.
Probably want to share that with the stream.
Yeah, we got to share this one because this is awesome.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, straight out of Greyhawk. Yeah, I really want Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, and MC Ren to do this. I want them to do this so bad.
So what you're saying is you want some Run D&D?
God damn it! No, I want NWA. But fuck! Son of a bitch! Laugh it up, fuzzball. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Okay, here we go. Purchasing child hardcovers. Yes, I'm going to
Yep.
pimp the fuck out of this because
That was announced an hour ago, and I was like, oh, we should mention this.
yes, we should. We should. Since we're here, you're here, we're here.
apparently, Shadow and Son was thinking the exact same thing I was. Great minds, son.
Jesus. And you know, and here it is. This one exactly. If you find it cool, come on in. That was our philosophy. So you know what? That's the kind of philosophy that rather than replacing it with gender, race, and all that shit. And I mean, they do. I'm going to be fair. In the book, they say, you know, this as long as you can handle it well, then this should, you know, then this belongs in the game. And I'm thinking, no, it does not belong in the game. You know, and I think I can't remember who said it, but they summarized what I posted in the Gilded server. I said, no, God damn it, we were kids. We didn't think about this kind of shit. As a matter of fact, our parents kind of kept those subjects away from us because they were adult things. We were kids. That was age appropriate kind of stuff going on. So they kept that well away from us. And later on, we were kind of educated as we grew older, and we learned how to deal with it. That's what Gen X did. But this was our philosophy. If you find it cool, come on in. And yeah, Stein, he got me big time.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
I was just thinking of
Here's the thing. Back, what these people, these mental giants don't understand, right? Is they're basically saying, okay, you can play GI Joes, but everyone has to play a GI Joe, right? And you have to play the correct GI Joes. And while you're at it, you must be multicultural. You need to have all the GI Joes. You can't have Storm Shadow because that's a white guy that does martial arts, and that's wrong, right? Or Snake Eyes, rather.
Snake Eyes, right? Yeah.
But here's the thing. Some of us liked Cobra. Some of us want to be the commander, and you can't take our Cobra commander away from us.
I was a Destro fan.
Right? Exactly. Because
you're like,
oh, this beautiful, and I'm like, Cobra.
And I still remember there was the epic rap battles of history: Guy Fawkes versus Che Guevara, and Guy Fawkes said, "Face it, Ernesto, you're Castro, but less so. He's Cuba commander. You're more of a Destro." I was like, "Stop the match! Stop the match! God, take this man as a." Oh no, he doesn't have a family. He probably killed them all. You know, do your research. They know all about it. But yeah, that was good. Cal says, "I have all the chalk." Me too.
Holy shit! Oh man, I am so stupid.
Grabbing more Charlton May? Absolutely. Yep. Adult stuff. Yes, indeed.
Wolfgar, we're dumb.
What?
You and I are dumb.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Red Room.
Wretchedverse.
Agents of Wretch. Agents of Wretch accessory for playing G.I. Joe in the Wretchedverse. Motherfucker!
That could be a cool thought. And guess what? If you're into that RPG, that's one that I wanted to buy that one, but I'm like, Hasbro.
But think about it. You play Wretchedverse, and you either play Joe's, but you're in the rough spot because the government doesn't fully fund you, and you got all the problems, or you play Cobra, and you're awesome.
Now this is a quote I love because it's true. This is what I tell people, and they're like, "Oh, I've never done this before." Bullshit. I can prove it. If you played with Barbie dolls or you played with Masters of the Universe, My Little Pony, it doesn't matter. If you played with some type of action figure or doll, you were role playing before there was a set of rules to structure it.
I mean, it's indicative. You can actually use modern toys to describe this. Not only
that, but you were solo gaming in a lot of respects. It's how you occupied your time. It's how mom and dad kept you occupied.
Well, right, but like, okay, Star Wars. They can't give away Rey Skywalker action figures.
Palpatine.
Right? Nobody wants Rey Palpatine.
Palpatine.
Right? But here's the thing.
Palpatine.
Here's the
thing.
Thing.
For Palpatine.
Here's the thing.
Fuck.
Why? What's wrong with the toys? Toys aren't poorly made, right? Well, we don't like the character, but why don't we like the character? Because there's nothing to do with it. There's no inspiration there, right? There's nothing particularly gripping about Rey Palpatine, right? But But then you think back 30 to 40 years to classic toys of yore, right? It doesn't matter that Masters of the Universe is a Conan knockoff with doses of Gamma World. Okay? When I say I want you to play a barbarian with an axe, riding a battle cat into glory, and facing an evil skull-faced necromancer, everyone is like, yes, I want to do that.
Yep. And on top of that, what did it do? It gave some of us heroes. It gave some of us standards to look up to. Hell, the end of every Masters of the Universe and GI Joe came with some kind of lesson. I will say this: Brave Star, one of my absolute favorite cartoons ever. That one, in my opinion, kind of dropped the ball. I know what they were trying to do, and it was a very noble thing. But at the same time, what they actually did was kind of a little questionable. Where there was an episode where a kid became hooked on a drug, I think Tex Hex was propagating, and the kid actually died. Like it was terrible. It was a shocking episode, and I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to scare some kids straight, and I get that. But at the same time, it was like, jeez, dude, whoa, that was a little much. And that's why I say, that kind of thing. There could be a discussion there. They could have reframed that. They could have like represented it, but the way they presented it, like it was like, Jesus Christ, way to traumatize people. Nice going. But again, I got it. But at the same time, I was like, fuck me, dude.
Well,
And I kind of walked away from that. But there were other presentations of sort of like that moral question in those cartoons that actually kind of help shape, who some of us in Gen X were.
well, we're back around to the alignment problem,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
One of the criticisms of the old cartoons we all grew up with is how many that the good guys always are good and the bad guys are always bad, absolutely and always. And I'll even credit that, like, if you look at the old D&D cartoon, you can see the structure. The leader is the quarterback, the lancer is the naysayer, the chick is the cheerleader, and so on, right? Usually
Yeah.
with at least 1 to 2 multicultural pocket friends, and that's kind of rough, right? But my favorite cartoon of the era was Pirates of Darkwater,
Oh yeah, that
right?
was a good one.
Because the bad guys were pirates, but so were the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere the good guys went, no matter how good or noble their goals, until people had met them and knew who they weren't trusted. They were consistently thought to be criminals. They often were criminals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yep.
the implication for anyone paying half attention is that to be a hero, sometimes you must play loose and fast with the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because hard decisions require hard choices,
Mm.
right? Nobody should have a problem with that.
Well, there was a question that popped up where that popped up in my thread, and it was my party just encountered a group of orc younglings. Why would I put orc young? Why would I, as DM, put orc younglings into the game? You might ask, and I just kept going because I was like, no, I didn't ask, and I'm not asking that question. That's your table. You run it as you see fit, but it's not about to be justification for the end of my argument. And my argument is based in a certain frame. It's based on certain facts, based on stuff that I personally grew up with and what I know of the game. It's not an excuse for you to run your table. It's an excuse to keep that shit in the books, and then you do what you want at your table. Don't fundamentally change the game because we're going to inform the next group.
And here's where they tell that lie again,
Mm-hmm.
right? The consistent lie. I had this argument many years ago, but I've run into it over and over again, right? You go into a dungeon, you fight your way down to the bottom, there's a dragon there, and that dragon should be scaled to the level of the players, and they should be able to beat it because that dragon's only there for the CR rating to provide the treasure, right? as though the dragon didn't exist until you spawned it in, and as though the dungeon was a static environment, as though this is a video game and digits and numbers and replications say there must be a dragon here now.
Yeah.
No, it's a role-playing game. I'm making a world. That dragon is there because that dragon lives there. Here's a history, here's a background, here's a personality, here's an environment, here's why he's here and what he's doing. And you might not be able to beat him. You're on his lair, where he's in charge and he's got the power. The presumption that you should be able to beat him is a falsehood, right? But that's the thing, is that they're like, well, why would you put lizard folk children in a lizard folk lair unless you were trying to make a statement either about the suffering of the insert minority here or the brutality of the right-wing fascist adventurer? And it's like, no, I put the lizard folk children there because it's a lizard folk den. You went into their den because they're a bunch of thieves. You killed a bunch of thieves. Now you either decide whether or not their children are your responsibility, because that's called character building. That's a moral quandary.
Yeah. But again, in my opinion, there are other games that handle that, in my opinion, just a little better.
Oh, certainly.
And I think if that's the area you want to explore, go play those other games. They exist for a reason. You don't have to fundamentally change a game to make it a clone of something else.
I'm just saying that the same people that want to sanitize and sterilize your gaming experience.
Oh no, they just want to sterilize it.
Yeah, they also are the people. It's like, well, you wouldn't have put them there if you didn't have some purpose, some external, broader, evil purpose to it, right? Because they're the people that are saying, it's like, well, you can't fight lizard folk. Why? Because they're just other people. Okay, that's reasonable, but people compete. Fights happen. Well, yeah, but are you going to genocide all those lizard babies?
Probably.
Maybe, if I have to. I don't want to. Right?
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that the presumption is that, well, if you didn't want to do this thing, you wouldn't have it there. It's like, well, maybe, but that's not a one-to-one, right? Just because orcs exist doesn't mean I want to genocide orcs, and just because I might want to genocide orcs doesn't, by extension, mean I want to genocide insert human ethnicity.
Or
that's not how that works. Yeah, that's not how that works.
And that's why I'm seeing that, and I take umbrage with it, because I'm like, dude, you need to lay off, whatever's feeding your paranoia here, you really need to lay off.
Well, especially because it also throws out the opportunity to do really good things. I was in a Ravenloft game playing a Mongrelman. I was using the Shifter class or Shifter species in 5e to replicate being a human mutant, and I was a cleric, right? And we cleared out an orphanage that had been taken over by evil, and it was full of other Mongrelman children, right? And we were like, well, we can't leave these children here. They'll get murderized or into the woods and become savages or something. But we also couldn't take care of them, right? And so I was thinking about it, and I said, hey, wait a minute. What if we give them to that wizard we found, who we helped not be crazy anymore, right? Now, spoilers for people who haven't played Curse of Strahd. I'm sorry, I'm going to spoiler it. The wizard on the mountain is Mordenkainen, right? We gave Mordenkainen an orphanage full of children who are mutants. And we said, Mordenkainen, please raise these children so that they can defend the people and be heroes. And the GM only had one response. He said, to me, my M-men.
And here's the thing. All joy is being sucked from the game when those weirdos assert such things seriously. I agree wholeheartedly there. But now I want to get on this purchasing these child hardcovers, because this is a game that doesn't really have an alignment system. It's just there to kind of drop you into it and get you started.
Chalt has an awesome system, sir.
Well, Chalt does have an awesome system, but it's not. It's far more rules light than anything else. In fact, most of it is setting. So that's the great thing, because it's based in Dragon Slayer D20, which you can get for free and you can use as much as you want. And guess what? No alignment system. Problem solved. Stop.
Extra funny, because it's got an ad right there. I have my PDF of Advanced Game Mastering Like a Fucking Boss and the follow-up, because I backed. Right, so I should be getting my hardcovers of those soon, hopefully.
Very cool.
But I was actually surprised how many of those things I was already doing.
So anyway, between now and May Eve, so now it's limited time here. Yeah. You can get original Chalt for $40 shipped. Future Malaise for $45 shipped. Chartreuse Shadows for $60 shipped. That's here in the US. Yeah. Or you can get the entire trilogy for $130 shipped. I recommend go for the entire trilogy if you can. If not, definitely buy that first book, because that first book is awesome. And on top of that, with these books, we've pointed it out, you're not getting just one book. You're getting like 2 or 3 in some cases. They're all in the same volume there. Well, remember, and those books are going to be high quality. They will last as long as you take care of them. You can hand them down, through the generations if you like.
As you mentioned, you're also getting Crimson
Dragon Slayer D20, but you're kind of getting an older version of it. I say go ahead and download that PDF. Download the new one, because it's been updated. And that way, to me, it doesn't matter if you're playing Crimson Dragon Slayer. You're playing Crimson Dragon Slayer, but I would say get the updated version.
I mean, the new one has escalation, right?
I think.
I think that's in some of the other books. So I think if you get all 3, you do get the update by proxy or by degrees. Obviously, still get the updated PDF, because it has all the stuff in one place, just to make your life easy.
I use alignment deviation to inflict cognitive dissonance as a combat penalty. That can happen. Hardcovers are really nice. They're really well put together. Yes. Don't worry, Patty. I speak Typonese fluently. But I would highly recommend you get these, because they are every bit worth it. And he updates it every year, half year. Yeah. If you can't purchase the hardcovers, I recommend purchasing the hardcovers, because of course his wife won't let him do the 4th one until he sells some more of those. So I'm all for shilling for that. Chalt Ascended is in the 2nd book. Yes. There are a few I don't have. I can't wait till Avenger has talked about hosting his PDFs on other platforms too, like the Basic Expert, the Red Room, so on and so forth. I fully back that. I think Pundit's absolutely out of his freaking gourd with if you don't shop at DriveThruRPG, you're doing damage to the OSR. I think that's total bullshit, and he's not looking at facts, obviously.
It not only doesn't hold water, it has never held water.
No.
Give money to the corporation. That's the only way the corporation will learn. Do you suck dicks? Excuse me?
It's the same as and this is why I got into Pathfinder 1st edition, not 2nd, is because whenever I was looking at alternative systems to D&D, Pathfinder was one I wanted to look at. I'm looking at the employees. I'm looking through Twitter, because there's my lens, and Troll Lord Games is just talking about their game and hitting all the selling points. And I'll share some of the things that I found before I got blocked, because they're important, because this is really all I saw. I didn't get to see much else. And that really kind of didn't tell me anything about the game. It just told me, I just kind of went, wait, what?
Well, while you're pulling that up, I want to say this real quick before I disappear for a second. The reason that give money to the corporations to teach the corporations what you want doesn't work is because that's the same mentality that says, I won't strike because I don't want to risk my job, and keeps mining. And if your people do strike, you know what happens? You know what happens? He calls the Pinkertons on you.
Yep. And this was one I got, which when I saw this, I was like, wait, what? Whenever Paizo talks about LGBTQ plus representation, there's always a few people who inevitably pop up to accuse us of pandering, because you are. First, queer folks are making your games, y'all. I don't care. Second, did anyone tell us just focus on gaming? No. Okay, so I know nothing about your game now except this. And then after that, there was this little gem, which I'll pull up here in just a second. Okay, and this is where I was like, oh, come on. So there's this. Hey, sometimes you got to be the change you want to see in your industry, even if it seems small. It's not small, trust me. That's why it matters to me for our tabletop RPGs at Paizo to be racially diverse and trans inclusive. If that bothers you, you might have some fixing needed in your heart. Okay, so now if we don't like it, we're automatically just terrible people. Trans vampire. Okay, whatever. And those were things I saw, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And then there's this crap. I'm so sick of this. Like just let's talk about people needing fixing in their hearts. There's a long history of the no politics attitude being code for we don't mind if you have shit politics. See, code. They're no different than the Q crowd. They see this code and everything, and so when people see TLG saying that, what they hear is all bigots are welcome in our community. Look at the Gamergate movement for an example of what I mean. No, it's a fucking game, dickhead. It's a fucking game. Just goddamn. Let's see what else.
I have returned and I have wise words. I have some genius thoughts, some big brain think. I'm not good at hashtagging, so if somebody wants to make a hashtag out of this, feel free. Don't be loyal to brands, be loyal to people.
That's it. And so I said, I posted this. It was just a comparison of what comes out of their Twitter. An interesting thing. You can't take politics out of gaming. Bullshit. We've been doing it for years. It's not possible. Bullshit. We've been doing it for years. Saying that the company has a games only philosophy is making a political statement. No, it's not. Especially when you contrast it with a company saying they're promoting the LGBT community. They're not promoting their game, asshole. And here's the bad part. Luke Hart over at the DM's layer did such a fantastic and better job of promoting the game than Paizo or its employees. And I still wouldn't play it because Paizo acts just as badly as Wizards. Given the chance, they would act worse. We've seen the movie. It ends poorly, dude. Let go.
Here's the other thing. The supposition, the argument. Well, you can't remove the politics from gaming. Okay, if we take that as an axiom, right? Well, let's assume your argument's correct for a minute, just for craziness, just to torture ourselves. Okay, then you can't have any kind of internal government in game at all, because if you go forward and say, "I want to tell you a story about a magical kingdom," oh, you're pro monarchy? Well, no, we're going to fight the power. It's like, oh, so you're pro-democracy. Because those are both political positions. Either they're political or they ain't. Right? And if you want to posit that they are, and we're supposed to not have politics in our game, then clearly the answer is no game. No game is not a solution. Therefore, some things can exist without being political statements. Having a fantasy government that happens to be a fantasy monarchy is not a support of real-world monarchy, you disingenuous fucks.
Yeah, and, we need to be inclusive except the people we don't like. Yeah, that's true. Let me tell you something. I hate to break it to some people, but I'm going to have to. There are games out there where playing a Nazi and a communist is absolutely part of the game.
I mean,
There are these politics in these games, and
Cthulhu.
I'm going to be presenting them right here, right now. And guess what? No one's ever had a problem with it. Otherwise, these games would not sell.
Yep.
The GM's going to have to run French resistance. They're going to have to run Nazis. They have to run Nazis. They're going to have to run communists. It's all right here. And players can play on just about any side. Yes, you can do the weird conspiracy thing and do Nazi occultism or Nazi strange technology or something like that. That's all included in this one little book. The only things that aren't included are code talkers, which they were an integral part to us winning. Hello, that needs to be in there. I'm not knocking small niche games at all for that. I think it was just an oversight. I think it's something someone far better than me can probably handle, especially in the context of World War II, and could do it really well as a supplement. But also the Night Witches aren't in there, the Noctexan themselves. But I do have the Night Witches book by Jason Morningstar. I can integrate that. That's fine. I can even make up my own code talkers. I just think it kind of sucks that that integral part of our World War II history gone. It's not in there, and it's one that isn't really talked about. And I think that that's a problem, but it's a problem I can solve at my table, or I can either help solve or help someone else solve.
I mean,
it's not what I'm going to be like. I'm not going to small niche games and throwing tomatoes at them, waving flags and waving American flags and, doing stupid shit at them.
I mean, that's where you get the really crunchy bits of pasteurization, like the Captain America film, right? In Captain America, they have Hydra, and Hydra is not the Nazis. That Hydra is its own thing, which makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. But Hydra is also the fifth column, and the fact that they scrupulously expunged all the swastikas and all of the Nazi regalia because they didn't want to offend people means that they presented a pasteurized false image of World War II, right? That It's like, okay, I can understand it that we're going to ignore this in my fantasy film, but at the same time, I'm not going to forget it because it's wrong.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sorry to report, Wolfgar, it's 3 minutes to the top. We probably
true.
Want to call it.
Yeah, I do want to call it because I do have to run out for a few things. They want another bottle of vape juice, but that's beside the point. But anyway, my wrap up on this, I know we've talked about the main what we were going to talk about. We did talk about it. I even got to a few stories. Guys, if you want to do this again, we can. I don't mind doing these like little Q&As, these little AMAs and stuff like that. Obviously, there was some stuff I just didn't get around to talking about, and that's fine. We could, like I said, we can do it again. Especially if someone has, if you want, at some point, if you want to create one of these scenarios, we can kind of get together and discuss it, either on camera, off camera. It does not matter to me. I'm good with answering those questions. But when it comes to the recent arguments, not even going to apologize for it. Normally, people will say, "I'm sorry," but I'm like, no, I'm not even sorry. I play my games the way I love. I love what I play. And that's the advice I'm going to be giving to you, the advice I always give to you, get out there, do what you want. Remember, I love you all. I want you to take care of yourselves and each other. I want you to always play what lights you up. And as always, play on.